Welcome to Film Phreeks. This is Justin Llewellyn.
Eddie Williams.
And tonight we're going to be doing this is now part three of our audio discussion of one of the most influential filmmakers of our time, which is Quentin Tarantino. And where we left off, we last talked about his movies from Reservoir Dogs all the way up until uh, Death Proof. And now we get into after Death Proof came out, which was actually the first film that in his career which didn't actually make much money, because when Grindhouse came out with Planet Terror and Death Proof, it wasn't quite a financial hit like Dimension Films had hoped. So this kind of
and not only that, it was the first time that pretty much, while ain't nowhere near some of the bad films that this guy did on when he went on his down part, but after he did the whole M. Night Shyamalan type feel where he kind of like dropped. That kind of got us a little worried for a second on Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah, because I believe it or not, I didn't even see Death Proof until after I saw his next movie, which we're about to get into. And after Death Proof came out, it pretty much put him in. He was starting to work on his next project, which was going to be a war picture that he wanted to have with Brad Pitt. And the next film we're going to be discussing now is his one of the most like entertaining films that he's done of his career, in my opinion, which is Inglourious Basterds, which came out in 2009.
Yeah, which is in my top three favorite of his.
Yes, and I gotta admit, even back then in 2009, when I first saw the trailers for this, I was already fucking hyped because I actually wanted to see this in the theater when it came out. Because what really got me curious was that in this film you have because you have Brad Pitt and you also got Eli Roth, who's in a starring role, who you may remember he directed movies like Cabin Fever and Hostel and all that. So this was like his big foray into just doing regular acting.
And I think I mentioned it in part two of our review, but just to highlight that real quick, since you mentioned Eli Roth. Um, um, Eli Roth, I don't know how they met. Him and Quentin Tarantino met, but Quentin Tarantino executive produced Eli Roth's Hostel movies.
And yeah, both one and two.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so I think that's where the influence. I think that when they first met around that time was they became good friends, and then that's why also Eli Roth worked with him again on Death Proof, because in that movie too, we didn't say this in our last review, but in that movie too, Eli Roth has a cameo appearance as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, this one stars him as in Brad Pitt, and already from the trailers, I was curious because in this story we deal with in 1944, where it deals with these group of soldiers that are in Nazi-occupied France, which is them going after these. Their goal is to pretty much kill Nazis. They're these Jews, these American soldiers that are Jews, and they're looking to kill Nazis for Brad Pitt. And already for the trailers, I was already fucking hyped for this. I was like, okay, now we can see where Quentin's going balls to the wall with this shit.
Yep.
And unfortunately, this was one of those few movies that I didn't actually get a chance to watch in theaters because, yeah, my parents got to watch in theaters, and I had to wait until video when it came out. And I'll admit that even when I watched it on video 10 years ago, or I want to say about 9 years ago, I still love this movie a lot. And
I missed it due to me moving to a new state when I moved to Ohio back in 2009. So I was pretty much busy that year. So there was a lot of films I didn't get to check out as much. 2009 was probably like the one year I really dropped in going to the cinema to watch films, because I moved about 1,000 miles away from where I'm at, and I started a new life and everything, and just things got kind of haywire. So 2009, I really dropped massively in films.
Yeah,
so this was one of the ones I actually had to wait till video, because like I said, I had a lot of catching up to do, because I think I went like 6-7 months without going to the theater.
Yeah, this was one of those occasions where I actually didn't see hardly anything in the theater that year.
Yeah. Not to mention, I think 2009 was also one of the worst years in films, because there really wasn't a whole lot coming out.
No, I mean the only films that honestly I can remember like really enjoying that year was Inglorious Bastards, Avatar, and District
Yep.
9. That's really the only
And
films I
Brothers
can
released.
remember.
And Brothers.
And Brothers, yeah, that one too.
Yep.
And but yeah, this one it got me really like curious, and so yeah, in this story we deal with in this video we in this story we deal with it's pretty much an alternate history
Yeah.
where we're in Nazi occupied France where we have in 1944 we deal with well basically it starts out where you have this this colonel that's working for that's the part of the Nazis, and he's an inspector for the Nazis, and it's Hans Colonel Hans, and pretty much what it
Played
is
by Christoph
played by
Waltz.
Christoph Waltz. Hans Landa, that's what his name. I got to remember that name. Hans Landa, who's there in 1941. He ends up going to this French farmer who's working on this cottage farm, and he's trying to figure out where these this Jewish family is. And already from the opening scene, we already get the mood of how much that I fucking love this character of Hans Landa,
Yeah.
because the way this character comes across, he comes across as he's very different from a lot of like typical colonels that we've
He's
seen in other
let me give
movies.
the best description. He's very manipulative,
Hmm.
or how do you say it? He can manipulate you very well. Like
Yeah,
he comes off as a very genuine guy because in the scene, it's a pretty long, drawn out dialogue scene, which I actually watched recently, and it goes up to like 14 minutes. So
yeah,
it's pretty much a scene where basically, he's want to sit down with this guy. There's rumors going around he's hiding the Jews in his basement, but he's not going to just go off the bat and just say, "Yeah, you got Jews." It's more like sit down, let's have some cigars together. Let's dialogue. Let's talk a little bit. And
yeah,
basically, this is where I fell in love with Christoph Waltz. This is the first time I ever really was like, "Holy shit, I'm really into this actor." And they go into great detail, good talking, just great fucking build up until I mean, he really just gets this guy, admitting, "Yeah, I got him in my basement right now."
yeah, exactly. And what's very interesting about this character too, and we find this out later on with Hans Landa, is he speaks different languages. So
Yep.
even when he's there, even though he's a colonel in the German Nazis, he can speak French like this guy does, and even later
Yeah,
on, he
which is
speaks different
comes into play
languages.
with Christoph Waltz because he actually speaks 7 dialects.
Yeah, and I not already from the beginning, I was already invested with his performance and also his character because he's so like conniving in the way that he's trying to pretty much act like pretty much a detective in this kind of scene, and he's trying to get information out of the person. And I like the fact that he's trying to pretty much manipulate and get him to talk to him about this in a very very sophisticated manner.
Yep.
And when it goes down, it goes into pretty much I remember the first time I seen this scene, I was pretty much fucking shocked because it all ends up where we end up getting him pretty much revealing where the Jews are, and they end up becoming underground where the fucking under the floorboard. And after that, it becomes pretty fucking disturbing after because he sends his guys in to pretty much shoot everyone in the fucking floorboard.
Yep.
And
It
then
was
the
a
only
pretty
girl
bloody scene. Yep.
yeah, and the only one that gets away is this girl that runs away. And when he comes out there in the door, he's trying to point the gun at her, and he realizes he's far away, and he just lets her go.
Yep.
And that becomes a crucial plot point because that becomes our one of our main characters later on in the film.
Yep.
And so already from the get go, this movie starts out pretty fucking intimidating. Um, and then we get into pretty much what is the focus, which is the Inglorious Bastards, where you have Brad Pitt playing one of his most like to me one of his most iconic performances that he's ever done, playing Outdoor Rain, where he plays a U.S. Lieutenant who is ordering these men to help him go after Nazis and scalp them, and he wants
Yeah.
scalps. And
Basically, he's going over the rules of engagement, and basically he said we're going to kill him in the most gruesome way possible.
we're gonna be doing one thing and one thing only: killing
Kill
Nazis.
Nazis, and that's became an iconic. When somebody thinks of this film, They think the way that Brad Pitt says that
Mhm.
Nazis. I fucking love Brad Pitt in this film, man.
Me
Talk
too, man.
about a fun fucking performance. And he
Absolutely.
recruits some pretty good actors in this film. You got Eli Roth, and a couple other guys. I can't remember their names, quite well.
Yeah, you
He
got
also recruits some Native Americans because, as who knows scalping more than they do.
yeah, I can't remember if that happened because I
Yeah, they do. They have a Native American in it. Yep.
okay, well, and then pretty much, yeah, their goal is to go after the Nazis and collect his scalps and pretty much kill every Nazi that's in Germany that they come across. And along the way, they also come across another former guy that's called Hugo Stiglitz, played by Till Schweiger. And I gotta admit, if they did this is one of those instances. This movie is able to have just small characters that I honestly would be fucking enjoying if they had a movie on their own. Because they have this guy that they come across that's a former that's a former German soldier that worked with them that got excommunicated,
Yep.
and basically he got sent to prison, and the bastards ended up saving him
Yep.
from the Nazis. And when they free him, he pretty much goes on the run. He goes along with them to go to help him out and kill him. And when it shows just this flashback alone of him pretty much like killing these guys, we get a scene where he's fucking killing Nazis with a dude with he puts like a fucking pillow on his head and he starts stabbing the shit out of him. I was like, damn, that's a guy you
Yeah.
don't want to fuck with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, we get the classic Quentin Tarantino where you get the whole pretty gory scenes.
Yeah, and what I also got a bit too, man, like that one of my most like favorite scenes is the part where we get to see how fucking brutal Eli Roth's character is because he's called the Bear Jew, and
Yeah.
they're trying to get information out of this one officer that's to find out where this camp is, where the Germans are,
Or where they're
and
hiding
this German
weapons, key
won't talk.
weapons
Yeah,
at. Yep.
that's right. Yeah, and they're trying to get information out of him, and he won't talk, and he's just saying, fuck you and your Jew dogs, and
Yeah,
then
fuck you.
he's like,
He goes, oh,
it's
this
like,
man wants to die honor for his country. Bring in the bear Jew, and you hear like this long scene of like a bat being beat to the wall, and then it's Eli Roth comes out, and man, boy, do they show why he's the bear Jew.
oh
He
yeah,
beats the fucking brains out of this motherfucker, and it scares one away, and they end up shooting, and this other one admits everything.
yeah, and then
Yeah,
the other
and
guy,
the motherfucker still dies, and it just shows like how relentless they are.
yeah, and they leave one of them alive, and one of the ones they
Yep.
leave alive, they end up scalping, or they end up leaving an imprint of a Nazi symbol on his fucking forehead, and
Yeah,
that ends
and
up going to
And now with
splat.
that's the kind of cool thing I like about this film is like Brad Pitt when he leaves one alive, he wants them to tell the story of
Yeah,
how brutal they are, which becomes a play in later in the film because when they run into like the very end, their name becomes well known and their Nazis are pretty fucking scared of them.
you know what that reminded me of, right? I
Uh,
honestly wondered if Quentin like actually took that out of Natural Born Killers, where they leave one person alive to tell the tale. I was actually
that's
wondering if
what I'm
he actually
saying.
got influence of that.
Spike mentioned how he was like, while I thought, he did well in the writing, but he wasn't fond of how they changed things of Oliver Stone. I do feel like in a way he kind of really liked Oliver Stone's Natural Born Killers because everything after that he's took from key
Yeah,
writing
exactly.
and he's done with Kill Bill and building on up until now, and including this film.
Yeah.
It's like I think that he truly, in a way, deep down, he don't want to admit it. He loved how Natural Born Killers came out.
Definitely. But yeah, and what also threw me off the first time I watched this, I had no idea they actually had Hitler in this movie. They actually have Hitler in this movie as well, who is basically comes across the soldier that got carved with the fucking Nazi symbol on his head and stuff. They play it off where he actually sees this form, and then Brad Pitt's like, he's like, well, he's like, or I'm sorry, Eli Roth's like, hey, Lieutenant, you look like you got him pretty good. And then Brad Pitt's like, it's called practice.
Yeah.
You know.
And while we're going on with the story, we do get the classic Quentin Tarantino, which this film does, where we go on different plot points where we follow more of Christoph Waltz's character and his journey on finding other, you know, just going on his own journey, and then you get introduced later on in the film where we get the girl from the beginning of the film, which is years like a year or two later. I can't remember.
Uh, yeah, it's about a few years later. It's about the
Yeah,
night
where
before the court's
she's
about 3 years.
integrated into the city
Yeah,
more, and you get like a lot of key scenes where you get her talking to other Nazis. Like you get like really big dialogue. It gets heavily dialogue where you get like scenes where like this one Nazi guy is like got the hots for her. He's trying to get with her, and she's just doing her own thing. I believe she owned a theater at this point.
that's right. Yeah, that her name is Shoshana, who's the French woman that escaped from her family that was killed at the beginning of the film. And this movie splits it up to where it's mainly focusing on her storyline throughout the film because she's pretty much on this theater after she's secluded her life in France, and she's trying to run this theater and stuff, and she comes across the nut. She gets visited by the Nazis that are inspecting the place and everything, and they end up calling her to do a meeting pretty much with the former head honchos, and she ends up coincidentally meeting fucking Christoph Waltz right there. And I remember the first time I watched that scene, I was like, "Oh shit! I wonder if
Yeah,
he's
it's
gonna
great.
recognize her."
Yeah, I know. It was pretty fucking intense scene, especially the part where he's like really digging deep down into her, like the part where like he's having her eat a. I mean, it's really good dialogue. Like this shit is just like just talking and talking. It's a very heavily dialogue film. Like you get the scene where like he's talking to her, and he's like uh ordering the strudel and
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Like he's
That's
going
right.
in really great detail. And it's just like stuff that like people would probably find boring, but to me, I found very entertaining because every little single line word spoken is just so fucking it grabs you. It's like holy shit, dude.
Yeah,
I don't even care if they can say fuck what fuck. Yeah, I just don't it don't bother me. It's just
it
like, oh
does.
my god, the shit that they're just talking about is awesome.
Yeah, and then while this is happening, because her pretty much her plan is after she realizes that the Nazis are going to be you know because what happens is she encounters a guy who's an officer of the SS, and this guy is actually an actor that he played in, which is called a film called Nation's Pride. And when she realizes that this movie is going to become famous, she actually has a plan where she can get together where she can invite the actual Nazis at the theater, and her plan
And
is to pretty much
Hitler
have
go
the
and watch it. Yeah.
yeah, and her plan is to pretty much have the theater set on fire after she invites all the Nazis there to basically
Yeah.
get revenge.
And then we
So
also get like a kind of a quick appearance by other big actors, like we had Michael Fassbender.
I'm going to get to that because I'm going to tell you right now, this right here was probably my favorite character of the film. In our next segment, we get into which is the night at the pretty much the tavern. We get into what I consider my favorite character of the entire film, which is Lieutenant Archie Hickox, who is played by Michael Fassbender. And what he is he's a British spy that's working with the British government to work with the bastards in order to infiltrate the Nazi Germany. And his plan is to pretty much go to meet up with this actress named Bridget von Hammersmark, who's played by Diane Kruger, and in order to get inside basically this film festival that they're hosting at the theater. And
Yeah.
their plan is to pretty much meet up with the bastards in order to get in to do a rendezvous point with their contact, who to meet up with her. And I gotta admit, this first time I seen this scene, I was thrown off by the fact that we get introduced to Mike Myers in this scene, and he's actually playing a cameo role where he's playing the guy that's giving him the information about it. And
Yep.
it's sad that he went just earlier, just a year prior. He starred in one of the worst movies of all time, which was The Love Guru, and he got
Yeah.
and he got a pretty much a comeback the year later with this movie.
Well, he don't get credit because he's such a cameo, but yeah, that's the result of his career going from like a main star to doing Love Guru, which ended his career completely, where
Yeah.
he's basically just doing cameo on cameo, which we got one with him in Bohemian Rhapsody recently, which was fitting because he was in Wayne's World, which praised that.
Yeah, but he was great in this though, and I also enjoyed that in this scene too. We get to see a guy that's also playing Winston Churchill as well, so that was cool.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
but what I
but
love
yeah, that
about
was a great dialogue scene, especially where the tension of the scene where he got Michael Fassbender. They're at this tavern, and this one German guy is kind of like, "Yeah, you're a phony," and
well,
they're basically picking each other apart, which I fucking got into.
I do too. What I love about this scene is that because the whole plan is that they meet up. Their plan is to have Hugo Stieglitz, the German guy that we mentioned earlier, along with another guy that's part of the German, who's an Austrian Jew who basically betrayed the Nazis and stuff. Their plan is to go inside the tavern to meet up with Bridget. And when they get there, they have to pretty much wear SS uniforms to pose as German officers. And when they go in there, they have to pretty much, blend in to make sure that they don't blow their cover. And I gotta admit, this whole scene right here, where it just shows them just hanging out and stuff, and just trying not to blow their cover, it's one of the most intense moments of a Quentin Tarantino movie. And I just love the way the dialogue plays out because you know that the shit's gonna go down eventually. But I just love the way the reactions everyone
Yeah,
takes when
this
they're
is like the only rare times you can like actually praise long drawn out.
mm-hmm.
Because this movie is very long drawn out, but it works, and it's very rare. And only Quentin Tarantino can fucking do this, and maybe a handful of directors can actually take a something and draw it out, and not get criticized for it. And
Yeah.
this scene really draws it out, and the tension just gets better by the second. I mean, you go from just dialogue to dialogue to dialogue, and then you start noticing that the German's picking up on some things, and
Yeah,
he's
because
questioning in him, and he's just like, "Oh my god, it's getting there! It's getting there! It's taking a while, but it's getting there." And I'm loving every second of it.
yeah, you get this guy that comes in that's pretty much an officer of the like one of the main officers of the SS that comes in, and he starts to notice something about his accent, Fassbender's accent and stuff, and starts to question him and stuff. And I just like the way this scene builds up because you can tell that Fassbender's just his character is trying not to blow his cover and stuff, but the way he's talking his accent, he's trying not to pick anything. But you can tell, what I appreciate with the subtle moment was later on after that scene, we see that he does this the sign of the German signal, which is doing the three, and they have to do it in a certain way. And when he does it, he holds up three fingers instead of putting like one finger on the other side. And when he
Yeah,
does this, he blows his cover. And
yeah.
that's when we get into pretty much what I consider one of the best fucking shootouts of the entire film.
Which
And
blew me away because you lose everybody in this scene.
yeah, and because what I appreciated the build up to this is the fact that we hear Fassbender go into his regular voice where he's like, "I hope you don't mind if I go speaking in the Kings," and just the way he plays it off, where he's just doing dialogue with him, it's the closest that we'll ever get to Fassbender pretty much playing James Bond because he comes across as so charismatic and very manipulative and very suave and sophisticated that I honestly wish they would have made the whole movie about him, to be honest, because he was my favorite character.
I like the part where also in that scene where they both like pointing their guns at each other's dicks.
He's like, yeah, like you have Hugo putting his fucking gun on his dick, and you got him pointing at his dick and shit, and it's like
Yep.
he's like, I'm a regular Frederick Zoller.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah. Yeah, they get this big shootout scene where pretty much everybody dies in this scene, which was
yeah,
pretty
you got
cool.
pretty much everyone pretty much getting
Michael
shot to hell.
Fassbender, all of them. Yeah.
Mhm. And then the only one that really survives is this other German soldier that's there, and he's the one that they mentioned where he just had a kid and everything, and it was day he was born, he was celebrating,
Yeah.
and he ends up getting a Nazi standoff with Brad Pitt as he comes down. He's trying to negotiate to give up Bridget because she survived from just getting shot in the leg.
Yeah.
And what threw me off, the only thing I did kind of have just kind of a minor like kind of thing was why exactly she ended up killing him after he let her go.
Yeah.
because it wasn't really clear as to why she would just, kill him anyway if he was just going to let her go for it.
I think it has a lot to do with like because of the damage the Nazis did in real life. People had no fucking like seriously nobody has no sympathy for them. If I mean there's some that's even came out of public 40, 50, 60 years later and said, I did this. I was part of the Nazis. I'm sorry. I seen what I did wrong. I was told I was brainwashed. Da, 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 da. And I've been good ever since. And motherfuckers still either give them life in prison or execute them. It doesn't matter. Like if you were a Nazi and you ever partake in part of that, you're still fucking charged for that shit today. And
Yeah.
even it doesn't matter if you're brainwashed, you're held accountable. You were held accountable to turn on them. And if you never did, because out of fear, you still got charged as being one, and that's pretty much why it plays out, and I can see why. But then, like later on, we in this film, we get into back to Christoph Waltz's character, and we get to where we go back to Brad Pitt and all them, and they're trying to infiltrate the like more of the kind of like a dinner scene where everybody's all hanging out, like pretty much pre pre getting together before the theater. And if you guys are not familiar with history, this part of the scene is where Brad Pitt and everybody is trying to play Italians. And
Yeah,
in,
where
in
they end up going
history,
to the
yeah,
premiere of the theater
yeah.
of the
And
theater
in this
showing.
scene, this actually makes sense in history because if you guys don't know your history, Italy joined Germany in the war. And
Oh, really?
yeah, Italy did. Italy had a communist. It was their last communist president, and they were part of the Nazi Germany. And if you don't know your history, a lot of people don't realize that Italy was part of that. And Italy, we actually defeated in the war, and we conquered them, and they weren't part of them anymore. But yeah, Italy played a big role in teaming up with the Nazis, and basically this scene you got Brad Pitt and everybody playing Italians. So it was kind of a pretty cool, funny scene because while the tension's there, it's also like good dialogue, and it's just funny how they're trying to do like classic Italian shit with their like moving their hands and say, so and so, Mr. Teeny. It's just like funny. Yeah, I can't describe it. It was just hilarious scene.
Yeah,
And
I
then you
got
got,
you.
and it's kind of weird because then you got to watch Brad Pitt, who's a hick guy who plays out in the country. He's a redneck, and he's trying to fucking pull off an Italian accent.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brad Pitt is just fucking just awesome when he does shit like this. I love him when he does shit like this.
I do too. And plus, also, what I appreciated with this scene too was that, like, this comes back to our scene, like we said earlier about Christoph Waltz. His character Hans Landa can pick up on accents because he speaks different languages. So it's really cool that he's a guy that has a certain dialect where he can speak Italian and he can pretty much pick up on the way that they're coming across as fake with their voices.
And that's where he kind of discovers them.
Yeah,
It comes off
and
as they weren't understanding some languages, or like they're because like in the scene, instead of knowing the language, they don't know pretty much almost anything Italian, so they're just like trying to play off the Italian that don't talk typecast, where you're like, oh, we don't talk, we're powerful, and you can tell that Christopher Waltz knows. Yeah, I got you, motherfuckers.
yeah. Man, there's just so much about his character I fucking love so much. Like, because right after that, he ends up going to the scene. He ends up going afterwards with Diane Kruger's character, because the build up to that is he ends up after the shootout took place at the tavern. Hans Landa ends up showing up there, and he ends up discovering that the shoe that Bridget had was left there, and he also left a napkin that was there to indicate that her signature and everything was there, and also that her, she because she had a note that she left there saying that about that indicated that she was there. So he picks up on it, and then when she ends up meeting with them there at the theater, they end up going to this back room where he's like pretty much giving this really intenseful interrogation scene where he's pretty much asking her to put her fucking shoe on. And I'll admit, like, and then he afterwards, when she ends up putting the shoe on, he fucking kills her. I was like, damn. Which,
Yep.
I mean, I get that he wanted to pretty much betray that he killed her because she was pretty much betraying like her German heritage with the Nazis and stuff. But I
Yep.
did kind of also question the kind of motive that they were kind of going for in this scene. Like,
Yeah.
why exactly was he necessarily killing her besides that?
Yeah.
But
But I mean, I guess what you can argue is the Nazis were known as probably being one of the most relentless people ever. Uh, they like, I mean, you could have probably gave them the wrong toilet paper and they would kill you. And that's
yeah,
what the Nazis were. They were just so fucking relentless. I think that's what Tarantino was going for to show us how relentless they were, and they were. That's historic accurate. So I could probably see why he did that. But yeah, we get to, more dialogue scenes, and then you get to the scene where pretty much they understood that Brad Pitt and them were, yeah, they're not all what they were to be. So they're captured.
yeah, and then they pretty much get
One of
after
my
that.
favorite scenes too.
Yeah, and
Coming
where they
up.
get to this part where he's interrogating Brad Pitt's character in this scene
And it's
where he's
two friends.
yeah
And basically, this is where Christoph Waltz does a 180, and he's willing to actually be on their side, but with stipulations like, being granted to live in the United States, freedom, and so on and so forth.
hmm
But they have to make a deal. And this is some of the best fucking dialogue in the whole movie right here for me. And this is the part where basically he's trying to relate to Americans, because this is where Brad Pitt, they already know their cover's blowing, and he goes back to his, his redneck accent, and everybody's talking like they are, and basically, they're talking, you guys are the what, the Nazis are scared of, the killers, or I forgot what they go by in the movie. They're known for,
the
and
bastards.
yeah, the bastards and stuff. And then he starts going in dialogue with each and one of them, talking to him. And like that one part where he's talking to that one guy, and he's all like, uh, there you go. Yeah, you're the Jew hunter. And he's like, oh, Jew hunter. Oh, that's the name they give me. He goes, fuck, I, do what I do, but Jew hunter, yeah. Like he's
It's just a name.
disgusted. You can't get, yeah, it's just a name. You can't control it. And he goes,
Yeah.
can you control it? Like you're known as the little man. He goes, I'm the little man. He's a big
No,
guy.
I've heard that shit.
Yeah. And it's this great dialogue scene where he's just talking like how the Nazis like give names for them, and how their names are like basically like pussy names.
Yeah, and while this is happening, we also get it to where they're showing the film of Nation's Pride and everything at the same time in the theater, and they're because essentially Shoshana, the main girl's plan is to pretty much blow up the theater while they're watching the movie,
Yeah, and
and
Hitler.
because the
That's where
film
Hitler
that they've
comes in.
generated is pretty much full of nitric film reel that can explode based on fire.
Yeah, and this is the scene where we get Hitler and all the bigwigs, pretty much that run the Nazis all in one spot. And basically, this is it. This can end the war
hmm
completely right here. And
Yeah.
basically, this is where, yeah, Christopher Waltz's character is going in detail, and he goes, I could turn you in, and you guys would be killed. The war goes on, it gets worse and worse, or we can make a deal, and I come and I give myself up. I'm prison war, but then I also give asylum. I can become free. Da 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 da. And you guys get the war. You win the war. You always won it.
Yeah, and pretty much they end up making the deal with them. And after that, while this is going on, we see that Eli Roth's character, the bear Jew, and the other guy that he's with, they end up because their plan was to have pretty much the dynamite strapped to them to blow up the theater anyway. So they have dynamite that's strapped to their feet or their ankles. I'm sorry. And while they're in the theater, before they get to they end up leaving the front row inside the actual auditorium, and they end up going to fucking kill all these motherfucking guards that are surrounding Hitler's area, and then they just start fucking shooting the shit out of everyone, including fucking Hitler himself. And I was like, and I remember the first time I watched, it, I was like, oh shit,
Yeah.
Quentin Tarantino
Yeah.
didn't actually go full on history. He fucking changed it.
Yeah, he changed it to where they fucking just straight up fucking turned his ass into hamburger meat.
I was like, damn, they fucking
Yeah.
shot the
I
shit out of
love
him.
Quentin Tarantino when he does this shit. Just fuck it. Just
Yeah,
fucking slaughter everything.
yeah.
Yep.
And they start murdering fucking everyone down there with the fucking shooting down. And because basically when this sets up, before that leads into it, we see that there's like when they're watching the Nation's Pride movie, which is basically a documentary about the Nazis in Germany and stuff. There's the Shoshana girl comes on screen and she's basically saying she has a message to Germany. He's like, I'm gonna kill every one of you, and then she's pretty much laughing the whole time, and pretty much the film ends up being lit by her lover that sets the film on fire, and the whole fucking theater just erupts into flames, and then
Yeah.
everyone's just getting fucking killed and then shot to shit by the bear Jew and the other bastard. Yeah, it's a pretty fucking pretty epic climax that they take place with.
Yeah, and then after that takes place, pretty much the war is won, and basically Christoph Waltz decides, okay, now we made a deal. I'm ready. I'm yours. And they handcuff him. Da 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 da. Take him. You think Christoph Waltz is gonna go and live a happy ever after life? No. If he understood that the term bastards, he should have just understood why they left their name, because there's a scene after where they take him out in the woods and they just straight fucking brutalize his ass.
Oh yeah, because afterwards they kill his guard right there, then scalp him down, and they end up basically Aldo ends up wanting to pretty much leave a message for his superior officer because he realizes that he needs to leave someone behind in order to let him know that the Nazis can't be trusted, and so because he knows that once he takes off that uniform, he's going to be pretty much disregarded, but he's going to have something to remember him by. And he ends up covering a fucking Nazi symbol right in his forehead like he did earlier. And
Yep.
uh, and then at the end, he has one of his most iconic line, which is like he's like, "Well, it looks like I think I found my masterpiece."
Yep.
Yeah,
And yep.
and pretty much ends there. And overall, like this movie is like absolutely outstanding, man. Like I
Yeah.
loved every single moment of
Yeah.
it.
It's
There
one
are
of my favorites in 2009.
yeah, this movie was a fucking blast from beginning to end. Like the
Oh, yeah.
performances, Brad
This is
Pitt,
to
Christoph
me
Waltz.
is like, other than like Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs, like, other than like a couple of them, this is like one of my favorite dialogue heavy films of
Yeah,
he's ever done.
and
Yeah.
it's weird because the movie is half like in German and French and in
I
like half
like that.
English and
At
stuff.
least it wasn't fucking Valkyrie.
Yeah, where they actually because in that movie they actually got away with talking in full on English.
I hate films that do that.
Yeah, but this one, what was contemplating was that it puts you in the right mood where shit goes down, but you really, I love the performances by Brad Pitt and Christoph Waltz. Like he stole every fucking scene, and he actually earned that Oscar because this was his big breakthrough role here in the United States. The first time I watched it, and he actually won a Academy Award for supporting actor, and he fucking deserved it.
And I get that it ain't fucking historic accurate, because that's not how Hitler went out. What really was, but Quentin Tarantino I thought he did what was really necessary, is to actually give us a very proper closure of what should have happened to Hitler, and that
Yeah,
is us, not his pussy ass committing suicide, but us fucking blowing his fucking shit, you know. And I
yeah,
actually love the change of history in this one. I give this one a hell of a pass on that, because for one, Quentin Tarantino isn't he's not known, and he will never be known for doing something accurate. He just wants to just have fun and just change things. And I actually kind of like that.
yeah.
It's unexpected. You don't know what you're going to go into. And that comes into play later in another film him and I will praise, and a lot of people actually found more. They this time around they found more insulting, but we'll get to that later. But yeah, this I actually enjoyed, and this is like easily one of my top three favorites of his. With that being said, I'm giving this film a phenomenal grade in Film Freaks meter.
I'm the same way. I'm giving this a phenomenal grade in the Film Freaks meter as well. After Inglorious Bastards came out, it pretty much became a huge success, and it basically showed that Tarantino was pretty much, he was basically, it showed that he was taking a similar history, alternate history, changing pretty much history in a way.
It
And
was his first attempt at changing the history too.
yeah, and it's weird because I always noticed a trend with Tarantino. He would always make a film after like 2 or 3 years. And
And
so,
that actually is a good thing because he's like Christopher Nolan is another guy that I highly praise, and I think that the best directors wait years to build and work on one project, and I think Quentin Tarantino, that's what works. He's like, I'm in no hurry. I make
yeah,
one film, I built, and then I know my next project is going to be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, but guess what? It's going to come out, and when it does come out, it's going to be fucking phenomenal.
just like
And
with Off Topic, it's just the same with Martin Scorsese. He's actually a director that, believe it or not, he's actually been taking pretty much 3 to 4 years. Every 3 to 4 years, he makes a new movie.
yeah,
So actually,
Scorsese. All right, listen here. Scorsese, Nolan. You got Quentin Tarantino, um,
Spielberg.
Spielberg. Those directors that don't stop at making great movies is because they wait a while. They don't fucking rush. Directors who make about 2 or 3 movies a year, yeah, or once every year or two every year, they tend to have a dumpster, and that's because they got so much on their plate. And personally, if I was a director, I'd be like Tarantino. I'd be like, I'm gonna make one phenomenal film, and if I know that I can keep making phenomenal films, it's gonna take a couple of years, and you're just gonna have to wait.
Mhm.
I love that.
Yeah. And so if his next project he was doing was he wanted to go to do a different approach that he hasn't done before, which was he wanted to do a tribute to pretty much the spaghetti western genre that was popular in the 60s and 70s from director uh, Sergio Leone. And his next project that he ended up doing was Django Unchained, which came out in 2012. And believe it or not, this was the first Tarantino film that I saw in the theaters since Kill Bill Volume 2. And believe it or not, this was the most highly anticipated film of 2012. One of the many anticipated films of that year for me.
Yeah,
And
and
this
it was actually my first Quentin Tarantino film in theaters.
Yep, and this one we have. When this one is this one stars a different type of cast that I didn't think that Quentin Tarantino would be able to pull off. Where you have Jamie Foxx, Christoph Waltz again, Leo DiCaprio, and Kerry Washington and Samuel Jackson. And this story we deal where it's set in the Old West, which is set before the Civil War, and it basically it's a way of Tarantino doing a tribute to the old style spaghetti westerns from the 70s,
Well, it's not only that,
60s.
it's not only a Western film, is attempted at a Western film, but it's also it takes place around while it's Western, but it takes place around the slave trade area.
That too. And what's interesting was keep in mind a little backstory on this. Django actually comes from a series of films that were popular from the Italian exploitation movies that were done by from that starred a very famous Italian actor named Franco Nero. Because in the 60s we had a series of films that were called Django that this character would actually play as well. So
It's
this
also another alternate universe type thing where he changes universe, where basically he's paying homage to somebody who from a true story like Kunta Kinte.
yeah, pretty much. And in this story we deal with Django, who's played by Jamie Foxx, who's a slave who is pretty much, work as a slave, and he ends up getting approached by Christoph Waltz's character, who's a German dentist, and he's actually secretly a bounty hunter. And this bounty hunter ends up wanting to recruit him to pretty much go look for different bounties and stuff to help him become pretty much to train him as a bounty hunter. And already from the trailers, just before we get into the film, just from the trailers alone, one of the biggest things that got me hyped along, besides the cast involved, was the fact that you also had Leo DiCaprio playing the fucking villain in this movie. And that
Yeah,
is
which is
something
the
that I
first.
wouldn't ever expect
Yeah,
from him from to play as an actor.
yeah, and that was a good. That was like the icing on the cake twist, something different, something somebody I admire playing something they've never done before.
Yes. And already from the and after upon seeing the film, believe it or not, this movie came out on Christmas Day in 2012. I saw it with my dad, and I had a fucking blast with this movie.
Yep.
And so this movie basically deals where you have Django, who Jamie Foxx's character, he ends up going with these slaves by these guys that are
They're on
taking
a chain gang pretty
yeah
much,
chain
and
gang.
these what pretty much hit guys are pretty much whipping them, basically history, with black slavery, and basically they're going through this woods, and that's when out of the ordinary, which pretty much comes out of nowhere, where you have Christoph Waltz going through these woods with them. Well,
Mm,
like he approaches them in his little carriage thing, shows he's a dentist.
yeah,
And yeah,
Dr. Schultz.
yep,
And you got Dr. Schultz, who's a German dentist turned bounty hunter, who's seeking to pretty much looking for someone to his knowledge to find the Brittle brothers because he's a bounty hunter looking for them.
yep,
And when he comes across one of the chain gang members, one of them mentions that they end up knowing who the Brittle brothers are, and it comes across from and he hears it from Django, who's played by Jamie Foxx. And Jamie Foxx tells him that he knows what they look like and he can identify them,
yep,
and he ends up wanting to buy Dr. Schultz wants to try to buy Django to try to get him free and everything to basically take him on his journey. And it ends up already from the start. It already starts out with a fucking bang where you have pretty much Dr. Schultz already losing his shit because the guys are pretty much losing their temper and everything, trying to get him like not have him where the not get him away from the slaves and all that. And already you can tell that Dr. Schultz holds no bars. He fucking pulls out a gun and starts blasting the shit out of them dudes.
oh my
That are,
god, I know, and it's really detailed blood scenes too.
yeah, I was like, when I first saw that, I was like, holy shit, because not only were these guys getting shot in the most brutal ways, but you also see the fucking horse they're on getting shot to shit too. I was like, damn. I was like, holy fuck.
Yep, I know.
Yeah, and then pretty much after that, they end up when one of them gets wounded while the other one gets shot and killed. He ends up purchasing Django and makes him a free man. And after that, after it pretty much becomes probably the most brutal scene in the entire film, where he ends up letting the slaves go too, and the other slaves end up fucking shooting the fuck out of that other dude, and his like whole body just like explodes all of a sudden from all the fucking gunshots. And I was like,
Yep.
damn.
Yeah, I know. He goes into very grisly exploitation 70s gore type
Yeah.
shit. Yeah.
Yeah. And then pretty much the rest of the story deals where him and Django, Dr. Schultz and Django, end up going on a journey to train him to become a bounty hunter. And along the way, they encounter some pretty quirky, pretty funny, and very like kind of interesting dialogue they have where they come across like this town where they're not known for seeing like uh, African Americans on a horse and everything, and they
Yep.
end up in while he's along there, they end up having the pretty much the sheriff come by, and he ends up Dr. Schultz end up killing dude right there in front of fucking everybody. And then they end up showing the fucking marshal and all that, and they try to negotiate with the deal where he's like, I am actually a bounty hunter and I have a legal contract that shows that this man was wanted by dead or alive. And
Yeah, he's
this,
basically hiding out as a sheriff when he was a wanted outlaw.
yeah. And already from the get go, I love fucking Christoph Waltz's performance in this because it shows just how much of a calculated guy that he is, where he pretty much has so much like pride in himself of being a bounty hunter. And he really, sets the stage of the limits that he takes when it comes to setting up like meeting his the people that are wanted for murder and stuff.
Yeah.
And
I already adore Christoph Waltz's character already from the beginning because he comes off as a guy who just basically doesn't see, like race like most people did at this time. He was just basically like, I'm just like a free thinking man, you
mhm,
know. And you got him, willing to fucking train Django to be a bounty hunter and
yeah,
basically go on this journey. And pretty much sum up the story is you get the subplot where you got Django really using the journey on his own determination to find his wife, who he
yeah,
hadn't seen in many years because it got split up during the slave trade where everybody was split up.
yeah. And she's played by Kerry Washington, and
Yep.
basically, his plan is to try to find her because she's been taking her long, but he doesn't know where they're at. So him
Yeah,
and Dr.
and because
Schultz,
the brothers they're both after, they both got the same determination, dead.
yeah, and they come
So they
across
both got the same journey. So along the way, you get him and Django pretty much getting to, kind of like get to know each other, and it's actually a good coming of time story because you watch the journey as they get closer and closer together, and they're both after a purpose,
yeah.
and
And when it goes along too, you also get to see how much that he's pretty much seeing the potential that Django has, especially when they come across one of my favorites. Well, one of the many scenes that I love with this movie when they come across Don Johnson's plantation area, where they go there and they see Don Johnson who owns this plantation that has like all these different black slaves and stuff, and when he's there, he notices that the Brittle brothers there from one of the slaves that points it out.
yep,
And when Django's there, he actually notices that the Brittle brothers are there, and that's the guys that Dr. Schultz was looking for. And what does he do? And what calls back to that is the Brittle brothers were actually the ones that fucking tortured him and his wife. And so he actually already gets revenge from the guys that fucked him over in the beginning of the
yep,
movie.
yeah,
And
starts blasting the fuck out of them.
he's like, I like the way you die, boy.
Yep.
And he pretty much kills both of them. And he ends up also whipping the shit out of that one dude with that fucking whip that he's got. I was like,
Well, you
damn.
got to yeah, it was the guy that actually whipped him because in the beginning of the film, when you meet Christoph Waltz meets him in the forest and he finds Django and everybody, he notices that Django had like slashes all over his back from whips.
Yeah,
And it ends up being the guy that he's whipping in this scene ends up being the guy that whipped his ass.
yeah,
So it's like kind of like a good like payback, closure. And basically, this scene, you get Don Johnson and all them showing up with his guards, like, what the fuck is going on? Why you have this motherfucker? And basically, Christoph Waltz explains himself, and as long as he's a bounty hunter and he has proof, you can't touch him.
yeah. Because he has legal authority of it. And
Yep.
pretty much after that, along their journey, he starts teaching Django how to shoot and everything. And well, before the lead up to that is pretty much this has probably one of the funniest scenes I've seen in a Tarantino film, where afterwards Don Johnson's character him and Jonah Hill, who's in this also in this movie as well, come across Dr. Schultz's cattle that he's going around with, and they see his where his horse is at, and basically they have this funny scene where him and the fucking guys are talking about how because basically they're in the KKK and they
Yeah,
start putting
it's
Muslims in
basically
shit.
trying to change history because the KKK was like later, way later in years, whenever
Yeah,
black people were getting more freer. Um, but this one kind of did another alternating universe where, like, they kind of pre-did the KKK very earlier than what it was in real history. And like, yeah, you get Jonah Hill, which was a surprising cameo in this. And basically, like, yeah, they're just dumb old fucking retarded motherfuckers being KKK.
yeah, and they're like he's like I can't see shit out of this fucking hood, and they're like he's like
It
what I
was the
can't see
first
shit
time
out of this.
apparently they introduced where KKK invents the mask because this guy said that his woman uh, made it by accident. He goes, I just needed something to cover my face, and then it ended up being the
Yeah,
symbol of KKK
he's
with the
like,
mask. I
and
can't see shit out of this mask.
yeah, and Jonah Hill's like, he's like, did anyone bring an extra bag? No, no one brought an extra bag. And I just like the way that these guys are just shitting or talking shit to each other, being like, "Well, I'm going home. Y'all motherfuckers can't see. I can't see shit out
You don't
here."
have that shit, yeah. It ended up fighting amongst each other and stuff. But anyways, basically they're approaching where they were told where Christoph Waltz and Django were pretty much kind of like the area where they're probably going to be at, and they end up approaching them where they think that that's where they're at. And, it was the carriage with the tooth where he was playing the dentist. And upon where the KKK goes down there, gets ready to think they got Django and Christoph Waltz character, ends up actually being a setup where it's a bomb.
Mm-hmm. They set up dynamite there, and then they pretty much end up being exploded. And then John Johnson's trying to get away and everything, and that's when we see that Django gets his first kill, where he ends up pointing the fucking rifle at him, and he ends up blowing him away.
Oh,
And
dude, this is where they do the gunshots, boy, man, it was some gory, gruesome gunshot scenes. I
yeah,
mean,
it was,
there's
man.
fucking blood. I mean, some pure ass blood in the scene, and
Mm-hmm.
basically, I go back to saying, as the journey goes on, you see that Django and Christoph Waltz is becoming really close. Like
Yeah,
they're actually really coming together. And then this is like you start going kind of like off story for a little bit, where Christoph Waltz goes back to kind of like his bounty hunting type thing, where they're pretty much just going around just taking out just bad guys. So people didn't matter to the story of Django.
mm-hmm.
And just Django's kind of like, not really like, he kind of thinks that maybe, Christoph Waltz and what he's doing is kind of like unethical. And later he learns why these people are wanted and why he needs to, kill these people.
Yeah,
And, they become one. And pretty much it goes into kind of like a fast paced type thing for a little bit. Rarity for Tarantino, where he's pretty much just goes into more of, as time passes, they're just killing a bunch of bounties, just killing everybody, getting rich. And, Django's loving it because he's becoming, a guy who's getting talented more. He's making money and they're taking out people who are fucking scumbags.
yeah.
All right, you.
All right, so in, pretty much, and then pretty much afterwards, we get it to where along the way they discover that there's someone that there's involved that's called Christopher Watts' character, Dr. Schultz, discovers that there's someone named Calvin Candy who owns a plantation, and he
Yeah.
believes that that's possibly where his wife is located.
Yeah,
And,
because I believe I forgot to mention earlier, while they're doing all these killings and stuff, they're getting close, they're making a lot of money and stuff, and that's when Christoph Waltz pretty much had that agreement that with Django that you did all this for me, we'll go look for your wife.
yeah, and pretty much when because this takes place a year later, where they travel to Mississippi and they learn the identity of his wife's new owner, which is Calvin Candy, and they learn that he's pretty much out in this plantation area. And I gotta tell you, man, when we get introduced to Leo DiCaprio's character, I
Yep.
was like, I was like I feel like I was transported to a different fucking movie. Like already when he shows up, I was like, okay, here we go. We're on a fucking ride right here.
Yep. Yep. When we get introduced to him, and this is Leo's first villain role,
Mhm.
man, does he fucking knock it out of the park.
Oh yeah, dude.
Holy shit. The fact that he hasn't even been given another villain role is beyond me.
I know. Because in this scene, the first scene we see him, because the build up to this is that he meets his supplier that kind of helps him out with it. The guy who, if you may remember, he was the guy that played the adult version of Eddie from the miniseries of It. And he pretty much introduces him to him, and there's like this brutal fucking fight that goes along in this room that he's in, where if these two guys that are doing this Mandango fight, and they're pretty much like beating the shit out of each other while he's just smoking his fucking cigarette filter and all that. and he ends up pretty much we get introduced to him, and right from the get go, I was like, okay, here we go. Here's fucking Leo.
Yeah, we do that like quick cut where he's like, yeah, that weird looking face you see in memes where he's just like,
Yeah.
just hit that little
Why do
cigarette.
you want to be a? What makes you
And
be a?
yeah, and basically, Leo DiCaprio is told by rumor to invite them to come to the his place, his plantation, because he's willing to offer Christoph Waltz is willing to offer huge money for
Mhm.
somebody, some money
Yeah,
for some
they off
slaves.
they
Yeah.
offer $12,000 for one of his best fighters, and pretty much the idea is that
Yeah, that's what it is. It's basically
Schultz is trying to buy one of the
Christoph Waltz
fighters.
is going undercover, basically to say that they're in the fight, the black fighting gang too,
Hmm.
and that's how they were able to infiltrate and say, we're willing to put massive money down,
Yes.
and that's why they're able to meet him, and we get introduced to Leo DiCaprio, which fucking is just out of this park. It's fucking amazing. You get great detail, and you got the brutal scene, like you said, like he's like making these two black guys fight, and one only can like live, like they had to fight to the death,
Yeah.
and
And then
man, there's some brutal fucking shit.
yeah, they start
Holy
beating the
shit.
shit out of each
Oh,
other.
dude, especially when that one gets a hold of the other one and kills him for good. It's like, God damn. And
Yeah.
then boom, the winner gets like free fucking beer.
Yeah, pretty much. And then you got him pretty much also in that scene alone. You also get to see the original guy that played Django from the original Django movies, which is Franco Nero, who, if you may remember, Eddie, he was also in Die Hard 2. He played one of the other villains in that movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he also we have this funny scene where Django is going up to the fucking bar and getting something to drink, and he's talking to the other guy, Franco Nero, and he's like, "What's your name?" He's like, "Django." He's like, "How do you spell it?" Django. The D is silent. He's like, "I know." Makes you give you a hit, like, okay, yeah, we know he's from the original Django movies.
Yep.
Yeah, and then pretty much after that, we get it to where DiCaprio's character Calvin is trying to, make a deal with him where he wants to try to negotiate with Christoph Waltz's character, trying to find out, trying to get the best buyer involved. And one of my favorite lines is the part where uh, Django is like, he's like, "I'm curious, what makes you so curious?" And he's like, "You got my curiosity, but now you got my attention."
Yep. Yep. And then as we go on with the story, you get where the part where Leo takes them on the journey to kind of look at. Basically, they're there for fighters, and that's the whole point is them to look for fighters. And he takes them around his big fucking plantation,
Mhm.
which is handed down from generations. He's like one of the wealthiest motherfuckers. It was handed down from his great grandfather. And
Yeah.
basically, they're going around, and they get to that part where they kind of go more towards like the more very out there hick part of his plantation,
Hmm.
where they start meeting some fucking country motherfuckers. I'm talking about some Appalachia type motherfuckers,
Yeah, you
and
also get to see
way deep back
Walton
down
Goggins.
there. And this is where they're treating some of the black slaves like shit in this
Yeah, you
area.
also yeah, and this is also the area where we get to introduce to Walton Goggins character, Billy Crash, who pay attention to him because he comes back in another Tarantino movie after this movie,
Yep.
and basically along the way they come across while they're on their way to his plantation called Candyland.
Hmm.
Funny. They end up coming across one of his slave owners that he had, which was one of them that tried to escape from trying to fight again. And we get this really fucking intense scene that shows how Calvin is pretty much so fucking vicious. And it's the part where he's trying to get him to come off that tree and stuff. And they're trying to get him, he's trying to get him to fight again and everything. And he's basically just refusing and all that.
Yeah.
And
Oh, before we talk about that, we also, like you said, that one guy where he's pretty much not liking Django from like the start, where he's just running his fucking mouth,
yeah.
saying,
And he,
why is this black man gotta be on a horse?
yeah.
Just basically just so against it. And Leo's kind of like, kind of sympathetic at first, like, no, they're big buyers, they're big buyers, you
Yeah,
know.
which
Yeah,
that's what I appreciate too about Leo's character in this was that even
yeah,
though he's a piece of shit the way he treats everyone, it still
yeah,
shows that he has moral grounds where he still has a business that he runs and
yeah.
he's
That's
very
what I'm
respectful.
saying. Like, he doesn't see it as more race, even though it technically ends up being race. But if you have the dough, if you're a black man and you show up with $1 million, oh man, you're white. You're white.
Yeah,
Yeah, he doesn't give a fuck. Oh, you show $1 million? Oh, well, hell, you're white, man. You're free as fuck. Just
yeah,
give me some money. All right, we make some deals. And that's basically how he sees it. But the other guy is just basing off pure racism. So he's like, why is that black man on the bus? Just basically just talking shit to Django on the
yeah,
way there. But yeah, going back to that scene, we get this fucking brutal ass scene where he has these black guys fighting again. And basically, it involves dogs. Like they're trying to like sick these dogs on this one black guy, and he doesn't want to come down from the tree. And yeah, this is where we officially get Leo's like who this motherfucker really is. Like he is fucking dark.
yeah. And he starts like basically because the whole plot is basically the whole point is that Django is trying to uh I'm sorry, Schultz is trying to pretty much tell him that nobody can try to buy it on that kind of level or whatever, and he's trying to make him an offer and stuff that he could do to try to buy the fight or whatever.
Yeah,
And
this is the part where like Leo also kind of like Christoph Waltz almost like blows the cover a little bit, him and Django, because they're kind of getting offended, and that's when they're like, "I thought you were into the fighting game,"
mhm,
and they're kind of like, Django sees it as a ancestor, a brother,
yeah,
being horrified by these guys, and basically he's like he wants to stand up and say something, and like, hey motherfuckers, and Christoph Waltz is like, yeah, trying to kind of like calm the situation, like, yeah, what the fuck. And this is where they almost do. Basically, it comes off to like they really can't do anything about it.
yeah. I mean, and you can tell that Django is trying to purposely not blow his cover because
Yeah,
earlier we had a scene where he's trying to talk shit to some of the other slaves by saying move along motherfucker and all that because he's trying to fit in with the crowd and stuff with
yeah.
Candy. And along the way, he's trying not to, show any remorse when he sees another fellow slave getting killed and stuff. So it shows his
And
way of
this scene is fucking
yeah,
brutal because they have this fucking dog, these dogs trying to get this black guy, and they officially get him on the ground and shit. And Leo is basically testing them, like, then you wouldn't mind me have my guy, basically dogs rip him apart. And basically, you see Christoph Waltz and, Django, like, they're more, it's a fucking intense scene because, they don't want to, that guy's fucking innocent. He didn't do anything wrong.
exactly.
He was judged based off his fucking color, and the motherfucking Leo was just like fucking kill him, and the dogs just ripped this guy to fucking pieces, and they just gotta
Yeah,
sit there and take it because if they don't, they blow the cover, they're fucked, they're dead, boom.
exactly. And then basically after that, it pretty much boils down to where most of the rest of the film takes place when we get to the final location, which is at Candyland. When they finally get there, and we get introduced to one of the most like surprisingly characters that I'll admit the first time I watched the trailers, I kind of forgot he was in this film, and it was Samuel Jackson playing Steven, who
Yeah,
plays pretty
and
much.
it's funny because his character is so weird because he's a black guy who's been part of the family, and actually he earned his keep because while he was a slave under his great grandfather, he's been with the family for generations. To where while now Leo's a great grandkid that because he pretty much was raised by Samuel L. Jackson. Samuel L. Jackson is pretty much anti-black in this movie.
Yeah, he is because he pretty
Yeah,
much
because
became
I mean,
like
this
anti.
motherfucker is like saying the N word, like I don't want them, like fuck them, basically just pro white, like hardcore, like
Yeah, and the
fuck
first
them.
time we even see him, he's saying, "What is that? you can't have that in this house here, you know.
Yeah, basically saying the N word, like, we don't allow that here. Basically, it's like, oh my God, you're damn near white.
Yeah,
It's like, what
that's
the
what
fuck? And he's like, really like, and this guy actually becomes more hated than Leo's character
and
because he ends up fucking snitching. Like, I don't trust them. They're fucking pro-black. It's like, whoa, what a fucking twist! Like a black guy being like more hated than the fucking white villain that's killing black people. It's like, what the fuck? It's like I actually kind of liked it because it's just so unpredictable.
well,
Like,
and that
whoa,
becomes a crucial plot point later on because, well, we'll get to it later, but it pretty much kind of throws you off the way the story kind of goes. But the lead up to that is basically when they get to the house and everything, they're trying to settle in, and the whole point is basically
to
uh,
make a deal.
to make a deal with also Django's wife, who's Bermuda, because
No,
Dr.
no, not
Jones,
yet.
well,
We haven't introduced her until we get to the Candyland. You get the whole da 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 da, da, and they're like talk about buying some slaves and stuff like that, and that's when they introduce. Oh, get Mahilda out. Maybe they want to look at her. And boom, and that ends up being Django's wife that he hadn't seen in years.
yeah,
And
you can tell
then
that
they start thinking, okay. And you got to think, Christoph Waltz can only do this because he's white. So he's like, I need a girl. I need a girl to have sex with me, just do all kinds of shit for me. Like, well, we got one for you. And then, it's like, okay, now we're gonna play it off like this. That's got to be my girl. I'm gonna have.
mhm.
And basically, they get her out because she's been sitting in this like fucking underground hot box frying because apparently she tried to escape and got in trouble.
Yeah,
And they
exactly.
bring her in, and basically Leo's like, "All right, we're gonna go make our deal tonight. See which one of my fighters you want."
Yes, and pretty much when he's trying to when he negotiates with her, he also realizes because earlier in the film we forgot to mention that she also learned to speak German, and she was able to speak German on her own fluently, and it sparks the attention of basically a convoy for Schultz to pretty much talk to her in order to distract Calvin from knowing that it's Shingo's wife and stuff,
And it's
and
actually a pretty good scene because they bring her up thinking, okay, you're gonna end up boning this black girl, and he gets in a room, Chris Waltz with her, and he speaks German, and basically he has a surprise for her. And be honest with you, I love this fucking scene right here where Django sees his love of his life for the first
yeah.
time in years. And oh my God, it was so fucking good. I
Yeah,
mean, just like it was like, oh my God, it was so fucking like heartwarming to see them two together again. Basically, they're like, all right, we gotta play this off. You know, we can't be we can't be known that we're together.
yeah. And then pretty much afterwards, it deals. Yeah, I really enjoy that scene. It was very heartwarming. And then pretty much after that, we get to probably my favorite scene of the entire. Well, probably the whole entire like segment we get,
Yeah.
which involves the dinner scene, where we get it to where they're going over the dinner. At dinner, they end up Schultz and Django end up going there for dinner, and they set it
Yep.
up where DiCaprio's Calvin Candy is trying to discuss a deal about purchasing the Black Fighter and stuff.
Yep.
And they want to also call him the Black Hercules and all that.
Yep.
And pretty much while this dialogue is going on, you can tell that some shit's going to go down because when Hildy is going back and forth, going through from room to room, she notices Stephen Samuel Jackson's character notices something about her, like looking at her and Django like eye to eye, and he notices
Yep.
something is up, and he's like,
Yeah, because they kept like looking really like he can tell by their context. He goes, something ain't right here. So he pulls her aside and he's basically questioning her. He goes, "You know that boy, don't you? Don't lie to me. You know that boy." And all that stuff. And basically, he gets to the part where we get Leo. He goes up to Leo. He goes, "Can I speak to you in the back?" And Leo's like, "I'll be right back." And he goes back and he goes, "Them two know each other. They're not here for fighters. They're here to save her." I
and that
think
scene
that
right
I
there,
think that one dude is. I think that Django guy is with her. I think that's what the whole purpose of this is. They don't want your fighters. And basically, Leo's like, not believing. He goes, you know what? He starts pointing out some good facts, and Leo's like catching on, like, yeah, kind of like, you might be right. I'm catching on to that. So basically, Leo, which is one of my favorite scenes because it is so improvised in the scene to actually, Leo actually got injured in the scene and he played it off.
Yes, he did because this is my all-time favorite scene of the film where it shows Calvin goes back inside to negotiate the deal with them about, and basically he's trying to teach him a science experiment where he brings out the skull and he shows how he basically points out the fucking dimples inside the skull. He's like, these three dimples are the same dimples that someone else, like your friend here, would have. Now, if I was to have
basically saying that like African Americans hold different dimples than whites, and one represents not thinking right in terms, basically saying black people and versus white people, and he goes, "You'll hear a friend," just going in detail. Like, I mean, this like you said, it's the fucking great. The best scene in the whole fucking film, and basically, I mean, he just goes absolute fucking just nuts in this fucking scene. It actually results in Leo actually slicing his hand in real life in the movie. It during while they're shooting, he cuts his hand wide the fuck open, or blood is just drenching everywhere, and it's actually really Leo's blood. And he actually, instead of saying "cut, I'm fucked, I'm hurt," he actually played it off, and it actually made the movie better.
Yeah, because he slams his hand on the fucking table after he points out about how he figures out that Django is pretty much in cahoots with trying to get his wife. And the moment that he slams his hand down and when they try to get their guns out and shit, you can tell that because he cut his hand there, and so you can tell that the blood he actually cut his hand. You can see the blood coming down and shit. And I thought
that learning in commentary that actually really was a cut.
Yeah,
and he just kept on shooting. And basically, he slams on he slams the fucking, breaks that fucking skull in pieces. He goes, "Motherfuckers!" Yeah, I mean, he just goes fucking ape shit right here.
Yeah, and I gotta tell you that this was the most intimidating scene that I've seen of him, where he was just fucking losing it right there. And then afterwards, he ends up getting his wife inside. He's like, "Now tell me, what did you?" He's basically almost in the verge of bashing her fucking skull in, and it's like, "What's it gonna be, Doc? Is it gonna be this amount?" And then pretty much Schultz agrees to the fucking amount. He's like, "Sold."
Yes. Well, he ends up making the price go higher for wasting his time. Basically, making them go broke, taking every money they ever made. Because throughout the story, they make a lot of money. I mean, they fucking just make loads off bounties, like, which is that segment about them getting to know each other. And basically, Leo pretty much tells them it's the entire money they have. And boom, he's like, sold. I mean, this shit just gets fucking just. I mean, Leo just nailed it in this part.
Absolutely. And then we get pretty much this really very quiet, but also really great build-up scene where afterwards we see that they pretty much end up getting a receipt filled out to get the deal signed. And while this is happening, Schultz is in the library, just admiring the books that Candy has and everything. And then Leo goes in there and he's basically telling him about how there's deals that go on about everything and all that. And then after Schultz agrees, after he gets the receipt and everything, and he pretty much leaves, right before he can leave, he ends up getting called back one more time to pretty much shake his hand as part of the closed deal.
It's a Southern hospitality to make a deal to shake our hands, and he's basically going in detail. You have to shake your hands, or the deal ain't done. And Christoph Waltz is so disgusted with Leo, personality and who he is. He goes, "I ain't shaking your hand," and basically telling him straight up, "I will not shake your hand. You're a scum of the fucking earth." Basically, telling him that through context. I ain't shaking your hand. And he goes, "I don't shake hands," basically saying, "I won't touch you." And basically, he goes, "You're gonna shake your hand," you know.
Yeah, and he's like, I insist. And he's like, if you say so. And then right when he shows up, because we forgot to mention this earlier, earlier in the film, at the very beginning, when he shot the sheriff inside the town, he had a concealed weapon that was inside of his sleeve. And he uses that same technique when he shoots Candy right there. And I'll admit, the first time I seen that scene, I was actually thrown off by it. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah,
And then
he shoots fucking Leo DiCaprio through the heart.
yeah. And then he shoots him right there, and then right when that happens, he ends up getting fucking shot to shit by his bodyguard that was there with the fucking sawn off, and
Yeah,
we lose Christoph Waltz,
yeah,
and then
which is emotional scene where Christoph Waltz actually gives his life for Django and says, "You're ready," and
yeah,
basically he
it's like
gives his life away and
well,
says, "You know, you and my journey's over." The whole entire time we find out Waltz was like to make Django as tough as he is, to free him as good as he can, and get his wife. And basically
yeah,
he said, "That's my journey."
he's like, I'm
And
sorry, I couldn't
it's
resist.
actually a good closure, and because it shows how Django really fucking like loved him, like
Yeah,
grew upon him, like they were so close, and basically you get Django pretty much saying thank you, and basically yeah,
yeah, and then
we
he pretty
lose
much says,
Saul
I'm sorry,
Bolts.
I couldn't resist, and then he
Yep.
fucking gets shot to shit, and then pretty much it involves with what I consider probably the best shootout ever in a Tarantino film, where
Yep.
fucking Django just starts shooting every motherfucker inside this house.
Oh yeah, he was blowing fucking heads. I mean, skulls getting fucking blown to shit. Yeah,
Yeah,
you could probably argue that was over the fucking top with some of the guns that they used back then were not that powerful, but it was still fucking cool to see.
yeah,
I
you're
mean, you
seeing
had
fucking
people
bodies
eyeballs
explode.
coming out, dude. You had throats being slashed and every fucking thing. He just by the end of this fucking scene of all the shootings, this fucking room looked like the fucking scene from Friday the 13th, Jason Lives, where he slashed that girl in that cabin. I
Yeah,
mean, this whole room looked like The Shining, where it was just fucking shredded with blood everywhere. I mean, he was just killing. And yeah, we didn't fucking talk about this earlier, but Leo also had a sister, which kind of was oddly fucking affectionate to her brother, which
yeah,
was kind of strange. Where it was like, are you guys fucking or something?
yeah.
Anyways, they have them come in, and they're even getting their fucking heads exploded by these bullets. And man, Django just, while he is kind of getting fucked up too, uh, arguably you can kind of agree he's getting fucked up, but he's just blowing everybody a fuck away.
Yeah, you can tell that, like, and they're even shooting the same body parts too, where the fucking bodies just start exploding from fucking bullets just flapping everywhere, like out of a
Now, if I
cartoon.
did had a little con, I did think it was over the top when he did shoot some people and they would fly back like Superman hit them.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
That was a little Tarantino carried it away a little too hard on those.
Yeah, but still, the
Yeah.
novelty of them going like fucking berserk, just everywhere, fucking blood spurting was just out of this world. And it all pretty much ends where it becomes a Mexican standoff, where Steven ends up pretty much taking Bermuda hostage, and basically he's having to surrender himself, or else she gets killed. And then basically he's about to get tortured and almost castrated by Walton Goggins, and it's only until Samuel Jackson arrives where he stops from getting his nuts fucking cut off.
Yep.
And pretty much after that, they basically want him to get sold to this basically this mining company that's surprisingly, I didn't know he was in this. They had Michael Parks, they had the dude from Wolf Creek in it, and they also had Tarantino himself playing these guys that are taking him to make him pretty much be a slave for the rest of his life.
Yep.
And while he's there, he pretty much tries to negotiate with them, which I like to see here because it kind of reminds me off of Reservoir Dogs with the camera angles and stuff, where it's like turning the camera 360, and he's talking about how he's going after a bounty for the Brittle brothers and shit. and basically he's trying to trick him into pretty much going along through his journey to try to get to him.
Yeah, he said he's a bounty hunter and hey, he's a free black man
Yeah.
that they're holding him illegal and that they could be arrested and all that shit.
Yeah, and what I love too about this is that the way that the dialogue is played off is just like very captivating. And plus, what I also enjoy is it's cool to see Michael Parks playing this because he's been known in a lot of other Tarantino films. It's almost like he's playing an ancestor of his character as that Texas Ranger he played in the other movies. And pretty much it all boils down to when he fucking tricks their asses when he shoots both of the other guys and even Tarantino ends up getting blown up by fucking dynamite.
Yeah, because Tarantino was putting dynamite in his pocket and shit, and that's where the Django fucking end up slaughtering and killing everybody else, and then he like shoots him and blows him up a million pieces. Then he basically frees the black guys that were in the cell with him, and he goes back to the farm and settles business.
Yep, and then he pretty much
blows Samuel Jackson's character.
Yeah. Well, one thing I wanted to point out too about this was that what I kind of also liked about Samuel Jackson's character in this was, if you notice toward the end, was that he actually didn't have a limp the whole time. You could get the idea that he was pretty much calling the shots the entire time, and that Calvin was actually, listening, was basically like his puppet the whole time.
Well, I can believe that because you got to think that Samuel Jackson was part of the family since Leo's great-grandfather was around. And basically, Samuel Jackson earned his keep and basically became so free that he raised Leo. So basically, Samuel Jackson, in a way, was his father.
Yeah.
So to speak. And basically, he could have been calling the shots.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's like a cool kind of like hint there.
Yeah, and then pretty much while this is happening, Django kills everyone there, including Walton Goggins and all them, and he ends up basically making him fucking paralyze Samuel Jackson, and then he's like, Django, you fucking son of a bitch, and then he blows the fucking house up.
Yeah, makes him burn alive, and and him and his old lady lived happily ever after.
Yep, and I gotta tell you, man, this movie to me, it gets to me every single fucking time I watch it. This is one of those movies that, out of the Westerns I've seen, this is one of the best Western movies I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, it's up there, I still stick with very good classic ones. But
I do too.
It's up there, definitely.
For me.
Yeah, and I will say that earlier, talk about, with Inglourious Bastards make my top 3. I would probably put this in my top 4.
Yeah, I do too.
Definitely.
Like this was one of the best.
So fucking great.
Yeah, this was one of the best films for me of 2012, and the performances alone, like especially, I do want to also give credit to Jamie Foxx because it was great that even though Christoph Waltz and DiCaprio kind of steal a lot of scenes from him, it still is great to see Jamie Foxx playing this kind of.
Yeah, I always downsize Jamie Foxx on a lot of roles because really, personally, a lot of stuff he does where he's playing with a higher cast, he's usually the least liked in that. But I actually think that for once, this film right here, I feel like he's more on par with them.
Well, yeah, that's
instead of just being considered least liked. I actually fucking really enjoyed him in this movie.
I do too, and I mean, I love his character and I love his performance in this, but it's just that I find myself more infatuated with Christoph Waltz and DiCaprio's performances in a way.
Oh yeah, hands down, I agree with you on that because I mean, we get Leo as a villain for the first time. He just fucking home run that motherfucker. And Christoph Waltz, like he did with the Glorious Bastards, that motherfucker is just so lovable in everything he does. Exactly. It's just like, oh my God, dude, you can't fucking not like the guy. The guy is just so fucking good. I mean, he's just hands down. He's Daniel Day-Lewis to me today. I mean, that guy is just fucking straight up amazing.
Exactly. And what I also appreciate too was that the film, even though it is almost 3 hours long, it still goes by at a very great pace where I still got I was still loving every single moment when they kept going on their journey and stuff. And I wanted to keep seeing more every time we got to the candy stuff.
Yeah, it's one of those movies that the runtime is very, very long, but it goes by so quick. It's like,
Mhm.
oh, damn, I love this movie so much. It felt like I watched a 30-minute movie.
I know. And what I also loved too was it was cool that he incorporated that other stuff involving like, old classic tunes from it. They even include the original Django theme from the 60s and stuff. So it was
Yep.
cool that Tarantino was able to capture the
Oh, dude,
original.
Tarantino is such genius at films. You can't expect nothing less than that guy. That
Mhm.
guy knows films, hands down. Let's be honest with you. I
Well,
mean,
yeah.
a lot of people say that, oh, Quentin Tarantino's overrated. He's got just fanboys. No, let's just give the guy credit where it's fucking due. The guy's a fucking genius.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
answers everything.
he has admitted that he does flat out steal ideas from people. But you know what? We live in a day and age where nothing's really original anymore. So the way
Yeah,
that he does
you
with his
can't tell
movies,
me
I'm
you
keen with
can't you
that.
can't tell me that nothing's fucking original today. Everything is stolen product.
Yeah.
Everything
So
is a stolen product from something else. Whether it be the beginning, middle, end, the story, the fucking premise, the fucking acting, the da da da. Da. It's something has been taken for something. Because pretty much we've been through everything. They've already went through everything. Today, everything is just basically the same story, but recasting and going a different direction. That's all it is. But it's still taken from something else.
yeah. And plus, I also enjoyed the fact that this movie it runs with a story about how, a bounty hunter going with his journey with this other bounty hunter and stuff. I love the relationship he built that Django builds also with Schultz and everything.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah.
and just the idea of, if I in fact they talked about it so much that they actually want to build more off of Django with a supposed sequel they want to do, or a crossover,
Him
sorry,
with
Django and
Zool.
fucking Zorro.
Yeah, him and Zora working together. Which hell, all right. Anything Tarantino does, I'm anxious. I love it. I mean, the dude just doesn't give a fuck, and that's why respect him. A director who just tells everybody fuck off. I got my name out there. I'm gonna do the way I want my shit. That always means an A+ director, in my opinion. You know,
Absolutely. And
Smith had that, and then he sold his self to the fucking devil. So,
yeah, but what
but
also, like I
anyways,
said,
yeah,
with the gore and
uh,
everything too, it's
yeah.
probably one of the most goriest films he's done, I'd say, up there. And,
I will say yeah, but you got Kill Bills.
well, true, but I'm saying as far as his westerns, this is probably I don't know, it's about tied with Hateful Eight, so I can't really compare. But it's
Oh, I also
definitely
saw one you didn't see that was pretty gruesome called Bone Tomahawk.
I need to
That was
see that one
pretty fun.
next.
Yeah.
But
So it's not like it's on its own par on gore and westerns. I've seen some pretty gory westerns, but yeah, it's with those other two. But with that being said, man, yeah, like you said, 2012 was one of my favorites of 2012. That being said, it's a phenomenal grade in Film Freaks meter.
same with me. I'm going in with a phenomenal grade in the Film Freaks meter as well. Now, after Jingle and Chain came out, this, believe it or not, this was actually one of the biggest box office successes that Tarantino had of that year. In fact, this was probably his most like one of his most expensive films of that year because it was on $100 million budget. And after Jingle and Chain, he pretty much took a couple of years to kind of give a break from doing films, and then because he was pretty much on that trend with like doing westerns and stuff, he wanted to pretty much continue with being on that same kind of trend where being as doing another western again. And there were rumors going around that supposedly he was going to do a follow, like an actual sequel to Django with his next film, before his next movie came out. And when he announced that he was going to do another western, people got excited for it, and I did too. And his next film that we're going to be discussing is a film that we actually already did a review of a few years ago, but we'll keep it to kind of a minimum here, but we'll still go into some shit that we didn't talk about. And that's going to be 2015's The Hateful Eight, which is the the second Western film that he did that he originally conceived as a novel and a sequel to his previous film, but decided to make it just a standalone movie instead. And in this film, we get a lot of great previous actors that he's worked with, including Samuel L. Jackson, Kurt Russell, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Walton Goggins, and among others. And with this film, I actually got really fucking hyped when these trailers came out because, much like with Django Unchained, it seemed like Tarantino was just sticking to westerns around that time, and he was just doing those movies. And then with this
and now
movie,
you gotta think at the same time, westerns were making a major comeback in film.
oh
So it
yeah,
was like everybody was anxious. And I'll tell you right now, they did westerns have been really likable in a lot of films I've seen.
that's true. And there's also the other one you just told me about, which is that Bone Tomahawk movie that I still need to check out.
Not to mention, we also had that remake of Magnificent Seven, which I enjoyed.
That I did too. That was a good one as well.
Yeah.
But with this one was once again directed by and written by Tarantino. And this one, he went back to he took a different type of approach where instead of focusing on, he was kind of going back to his old setting where it was going to be pretty much like set in one setting in for most of the film.
Kind
And
of like
this,
going back to Reservoir Dogs.
yeah, pretty much. And in this one, we deal with sometime after the Civil War, where it deals with a foray of characters that are on their way to this cabin that they end up staying at, and we get introduced to.
They're after somebody, and they basically get stranded at this cabin, which I actually heard it was actually a little bit inspired by. I didn't know this, but Quentin Tarantino apparently said this is a little bit inspired by a Western version of The Thing.
Pretty much, and you could tell too because if you have Kurt Russell involved in this, he basically has the same type of appearance in this, and he also has the same type of paranoia, vibe that he had in that film as well.
Exactly.
And in this film too, basically you have Samuel L. Jackson playing a guy that served in the Civil War, and he's pretty much on his way to Wyoming. And you have Kurt Russell, who's along the way, who's the bounty hunter that's taking Jennifer Jason Leigh's character to Wyoming in Red Rock, and he's to have her hanged because she's wanted for murder. And along the way, they pretty much get into talk, and in typical Tarantino fashion, they start to know each other and stuff. And they also come across Walton Goggins' character, who is pretty much to become the new sheriff of the Red Rock in Wyoming. And basically, we're not going to go all over the place because we pretty much already reviewed this movie in our other review a long time ago. When they get there to their journey, they're basically having to be suspicious of some of the people that they get to introduce to along the way, which is the character.
Which, not to cut you off right now, but this basically the plot plays like kind of like Clue in Western.
Pretty much, yeah.
Where you get a whole group of guys and girls all in this big ass cabin. They're snowed in like The Thing, and basically, who is the what's going on kind of story.
Who done it, pretty much.
Yeah, who done it, yeah.
Yeah, which is exactly what The Thing was like. And you had pretty much, in fact, what's also interesting about this was that the score that this was made by was by Ennio Morricone, who also did the score for The Thing. So you can tell that Tarantino was going for The Thing kind of vibe.
That's what I'm saying. That's why actually Tarantino revealed that this film was inspired by The Thing. But obviously, he's not going horror approach. He's going to Western. Clue. He's like, you take The Thing, but put it in Clue, and you do it a Western.
Yeah. And then you have pretty much when they get there, they get introduced to Tim Roth, Michael Madsen, Bruce Dern, and Damien Bichir's characters, who pretty much are the guys that are staying there for the few days while the snow blizzard happens. And throughout the film, you can tell that the way that the dialogue is and going, that there's something unsettling about these guys because they're not like that. Kurt Russell's character seems very suspicious about who they are, and so is Samuel Jackson's character.
Yeah, and it gets very intense because as the scene goes on, as the movie goes on, you got people like, you were involved in this, you're involved in that, and you're like, okay, this film. At first, it comes off as like this ain't making any kind of sense, because it seems like everybody's got like a story like that's so distant from the other story of somebody else is talking about. but in a way, it's actually good writing because everything's intertwining.
Yeah, and what I also appreciated with this was when they build up to this stuff, you start to really get the feel of dread, like something's going to go down. And boy, and the shit does pretty much go down when we get to our later half of the film, where after they pretty much get into where, because throughout the whole film, throughout the first half of it, Kurt Russell is trying to pretty much take Jennifer Lacey Lee and like abusing her and slapping around and shit, because she's, wanted from her, all that. And I gotta admit, like those scenes where he's like fucking bitch slapper and stuff and talking shit with Samuel Jackson were one of the many times I fucking laughed so hard.
Yeah, no, that is like probably the raunchiest shit filth I've ever seen Jennifer Jason Leigh ever talk.
Yeah. And basically, it all comes to a point where there's a point where after dinner, they ended up getting distracted by the old man that's there. Bruce Dern's character was a guy that was in the war, and his son ended up coming across Samuel Jackson's character after the war, or the Civil War, and he realized that his son was pretty much killed by Samuel Jackson's character. And in flashback, we see like this weird like flashback, which some people have interpreted whether or not it's actually true or not, because it's really just an idea of kind of paranoia. Some people have interpreted where people think that he's basically fucking with them to try to make him go paranoid. And then some people say that it actually was true. So it's been debated whether the stuff that he's saying is actually true or not. But whatever the case
basically everybody's got some sort of bad connection, which leads into obviously the name of the title, Hateful Eight. Hateful, where everybody's got something that previous person maybe sitting next to you. Oh wait, you killed my fucking father. You're the guy. It's basically playing off like that. It's like it's like while the Jennifer Jason Leigh thing ain't part of the real story, it's like other people like, what the fuck? Yeah, you were the one that was in so and so war too. You're a part of, basically going that. It's just really going out there in dialogue, and it's heavily dialogue film, like Tarantino's known for, which can't get tired of. But basically, everybody's just pretty much at each other's fucking necks.
Yeah, and I gotta admit, like the first time the shit goes crazy was the moment we start seeing Samuel Jackson had that really fucked up story where he ended up having his Bruce Dern's son end up going in the fucking cold, and he ended up having to suck his dick in order to survive.
Yeah.
Then he ended up getting.
I think Dern plays a racist kind of guy, so he's like, he sees a sucking a black man's dick type thing. He's like,
yeah,
motherfucker.
He's like, I made him suck on my big old Johnson.
Yep.
And then pretty much after that, he pretty much kills him after he tries to pull his gun on him and stuff. And right when that's happening, as it's revealed in the very following chapter titles, because throughout the film they have chapter titles throughout it, it's revealed that Daisy, the Jennifer Jason Leigh character, she ends up witnessing someone poison the fucking coffee. And when this happens, that's when the shit pretty much goes off the fucking walls, where we start seeing Kurt Russell and James Parks' characters pretty much just getting poisoned and fucking spewing blood out and shit.
Yep.
And they fucking go like spewing blood and everything, and it gets pretty fucking gruesome in this scene.
Oh yeah, yep.
And after that, he ends up getting killed by Jennifer Jason Leigh. And then I remember the first time I seen that theater, I was like, oh shit, they killed Kurt Russell off that early. I can't believe that. Yeah. Yep. And then after that, pretty much the rest of the story after that deals with Samuel Jackson pretty much trying to figure out more of what's going on and everything. And we eventually revealed that the guys that were there, Tim Roth, Michael Madsen, and all them, were all part of Daisy's comrades plot involving trying to basically kill Kurt Russell's character because he took her in for murder, and her brother was pretty much looking for the whole time.
Yep. And basically we get a lot of tension scenes where everybody's basically not agreeing with everybody. You get a lot of stories, kind of really like we said, we went in Hateful Eight. We did in the discussion on that one a couple years ago. But basically, everybody's shooting at each other, just fucking each other up, just fucking, blowing each other's knees out, and fucking. We get to the point where everybody's pretty much fucking gunned down and they're fucking injured.
Yeah,
And yeah,
plus, we got to talk about the most brutal scene in the film. For me, was probably the part where when they kill the Mexican dude and fucking Samuel L. Jackson just blows his ass to fucking shreds in the fucking head with those guns.
yep,
I was like, damn.
yep.
And then
And then we get deeper in the story, and while we're getting deeper in the story, we start getting a little bit backstory.
yeah, we actually flash back in typical Tarantino fashion, where it shows the earlier the film, hours prior, it showed that there were four men that showed up at that cabin a lot earlier, and it turns out that it's actually Channing Tatum and the rest of the guys that were there the whole time. And
Yep.
what they were doing was they were there to pretty much wait for Kurt Russell's character to show up with Jennifer Jason Leigh so that they could kill Kurt Russell. And before that happened, they end up killing all the people that were involved there, including including we also get an appearance from Zoe Bell, if you remember from Death Proof, and also if you remember that one guy from No Country for Old Men, the guy that played the gas station attendant, he played one of the guys there too.
Yep.
And so yeah, it becomes that actually I thought was pretty cool how they did that kind of twist there because it showed more of like how all these guys were pretty much a part of it, you know.
Yeah. And then we get later on the film where like the guys are just, basically bickering back and forth. Everybody's like trust each other and everybody's getting fucking injured and shit. Like, what the fuck was that? Basically everybody's getting blown to fucking shreds and stuff.
Mhm.
And we get this fucking reveal where Channing Tatum and those guys were in the floorboard the whole fucking entire time.
Yeah, and then
They opened up the door. It becomes kind of like me personally. I thought that was a good twist because it was kind of like remind me like Saul, where
yeah,
where John Kramer stood up. It's like what the fuck? It's like
yeah,
whoa, that was a good twist.
yeah, and you got and then pretty much you get Channing Tatum pretty much shooting fucking Samuel Jackson in the nuts, and then I'll admit, even because he's not on screen much time, the very first the last time that we see him go up into out of the floorboard going up to in the cellar, it threw me off the part where fucking Channing Tatum gets his fucking head blown off by Samuel Jackson.
Yeah.
Because he's like seeing his sister there and trying and just making small talk and stuff, and then he gets his head blown off right afterwards. I was like, damn, that was pretty fucking fast.
Yep.
Yeah, but probably for the better though, because I do remember when we first watched the movie, man, you weren't the biggest fan of his performance when we first watched it.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of his performance. I'm not really a big fan of Channing Tatum overall. Um, he's done some films like I will give him 21 Jump Street, but I won't give him 22. I basically don't think he's a good actor. I will say this in a non-shawant gay way. I think he's gotten into Hollywood because of his looks.
Yeah,
That's basically it because I do not find the guy a good actor. I really don't. I think 99% of the films, I think he's done one or two films I said that he was doable. Like, I loved him in Logan Lucky.
yeah, that was great.
Yeah, that's probably his best movie, in my
Yeah,
opinion. I'm not really a fans of the Step Ups, but I can see why he's in those because he can dance. Magic Mike, I'm not going to watch shit like that, so I can't judge that. Um, I will say that Step Up or Step Up. She's the Man. He was all right in. He was decent. Just he's done some stuff like that. It's just like okay, just forgettable and stuff. I heard Jupiter Ascending. He was really bad in.
yeah,
Basically, the guy really has done not good. If you think it overall career, he's only probably done three. One good movie, two decent movies, and basically like 5 or 6 bad fucking movies. He's not a good actor. He
yeah.
was a guy who was a model who got lucky and moved on to Hollywood because looks matter. And yeah, it just shows that why you're not seeing him in films today. So Yeah. Not
Yeah,
to speak ill of him. I mean, I'm sure he's a cool guy and all. It's just, yeah.
right.
But,
It's
yeah.
yeah,
But,
it's kind of how I feel because like his performance, I felt like it was at least interesting seeing him do a different type of role in this. But I
yeah.
did kind of feel like how we described, like how you described, like his accent just feels very out of place, if that makes
Yeah,
sense in this.
because I did have an issue with his accent in this film because he comes off as too fucking modern in this
Yeah,
film. Way too fucking modern. And it just shows he ain't got fucking much range. So yeah, they could have probably casted somebody else and it would probably been better. I don't know why Tarantino went with him. I think why he went with him, we were on that high horse with Channing Tatum. Because you gotta think at the same time this was going on, he was considered Hollywood's hottest. You know, you had people. I mean, he was even brought up in Scream 4. Oh my
yeah.
God, you're when Channing Tatum's in it. Ooh, you know, everybody was about him. Everything was about him around this time, and basically, I think that's why Tarantino did it because of more of trying to gain more of an audience of today. And I just thought that was yeah, it was not that good with him.
Yeah, I got you. But anyway, yeah, it's the rest pretty much after that it pretty much boils down to Samuel Jackson and Walton Goggins pretty much being the last guys, trying to survive themselves with Jennifer Jason Leigh and the other two that are wounded, Tim Roth and Michael Madsen. And one of the things that I wanted to really point out too was I've actually find Walton Goggins to be, a very underrated actor, and I think that he really doesn't get much attention in Hollywood. And I like when he has performances like this where he shows a lot of his really funny
Yeah,
side of himself.
exactly. And now that you mention it, not to be off topic and not a Quentin Tarantino film, I'm really looking forward to that film where he's pretty much playing like the guy from Drive Angry who played the cult leader. He's got a pretty good drama cult killing type movie he's doing this year, which I do want to catch up on because, early reviews have actually said it's actually a pretty good movie.
Yeah, I think it's called like the Them That Follow, I think.
Yeah, the Dim That Fall, yeah, Them That Fall, yeah, that's what
Yeah.
it's called.
Yeah, and so but like his character in this is just very conniving where he's trying to do the right thing, but he also has like his his uh his grounds where he'll fucking he'll kill your ass if you fuck with them in this kind of role. And I like the way that he comes across as the guy that's trying to do right to become the new sheriff and shit. Like he don't hold back when it comes to fucking killing people. And
Nope.
just the way he delivers his lines is just so like conniving. Every time that he would say something, I just couldn't get enough of him.
Yeah, I think he's probably one of my most likable characters in this film.
Yeah. And then pretty much like it all boils down to where Jennifer Jason Leigh's character is trying to negotiate with them. He's trying to negotiate with him, trying to uh, see if he'll kill him, Samuel Jackson, in order to join their gang and stuff and not get killed by the gang that she's running. Because she believes that there's people that are looking for her as part of the gang that she runs in the town of Wyoming, and they're looking
Yeah.
for them at that cabin. And she believes that in the next couple of days, when the snow clears, they're going to come there and they're going to kill uh, everyone unless they join them, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And basically, it all boils down to a final shootout where everyone gets fucked. Like they kill, Michael Madsen and Tim Roth, and they get their asses blown to hell. And then pretty much they end up in honor of Kurt Russell's character, they end up deciding to hang Daisy as a resort since he was going to be hanged by the hangman. And basically, they end up reading the letter that Samuel Jackson's character was going to supposedly got from Abraham Lincoln when it turned out to be fake, but that Walton Goggins ends up reading anyway, and it's debatable whether or not this is pretty much them pretty much dying, or if they end up like surviving after that. Because from the way that the movie ends, you're led to believe that they either bleed to death or they end
Yeah.
up later getting killed by the guys that eventually show up as part of the gang, possibly. But it's really ambiguous the way it ends on there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I got to say that upon seeing this film, I actually enjoyed it quite well. I do notice a lot of people did not like this film. And it does, while it is a little bit stepped down, because me and him's been calling pretty much everything phenomenal on film, on fucking Quentin Tarantino. It's a little bit down, but not by much. I
Yeah,
actually
it's
still enjoy the fuck out of this film, and I do see a lot of people say that this movie was a massive jump down. I have to disagree
yeah,
on that.
because I mean, really, my only really big problems I have with the film is just besides minor
Channing
things with
Tatum,
Channing Tatum, and some of the
yeah,
pacing can throw me a little bit off, like in the beginning parts. But once
yeah.
it picks itself up, and once you're actually really getting involved with the
Yeah, because the
plot,
pacing of them getting to the cabin takes almost a whole fucking hour.
yeah. So, and there's actually, believe it or not, there's an extended cut where once they get to the cabin, they actually extend even longer scenes, and they actually extended this movie as a mini series that they divided on Netflix, which runs about 30 minutes longer. So you're actually getting a lot more dialogue scenes in the later cut.
That's
Yeah, but yeah, that's really only my minor things is that some of the pacing can throw me a little bit off at the beginning of it, but when it really like gets itself going and stuff, it really starts to really get me dived into what's happening with with the plot and
yeah,
everything. And I like the way that the mystery angle of them, trying to find out what's going on and stuff. I was really invested with it, you
yeah,
know. And I love the performance as well. Like Samuel Jackson, Kurt Russell, like they made me fucking laugh like hell. And I
mhm,
just love the way that both of their characters, like the way they bickered with everyone else and everything. It had so much vibe of that sort of like paranoia level and it makes you really feel like their characters are really um, are calculated. They're trying to really figure things out.
yeah,
Yeah, and also what I gotta appreciate the most that I didn't talk about in my original review, I love the fucking score by Ennio Morricone in this
yeah.
because for the first time, Tarantino decided to use an original score. Well, it's not the first time, but it's like one of the many instances where he's using original score for a film. And Ennio Morricone, he has one of the most outstanding theme songs in this movie, and also one of my favorite portions of the movie is the part where when Kurt Russell is getting poisoned stuff, it has that really like suspenseful music playing in that scene.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, it's pretty great. And so overall, I still really enjoy Hateful Eight, and I actually put it on my best of list, but it was like very low on that year.
yeah.
Um,
I think it was like in my out of the top 10. I think it was like my 10 or 9 or something like that.
Yeah, so with that one, because it's kind of a little bit lower than probably some of the other ones, but still pretty good. I'm gonna give that one probably a low phenomenal grade on the Film Freaks meter.
Yeah, it's a very, very, very low phenomenal grade in Film Freaks meter for me.
Fair enough. And now after Hateful Eight came out, pretty much Tarantino was once again on his break from films for just a little while. And after that, he pretty much. Now, here's the weird thing. Before we get to our next film, there were rumors going around, and even to this day, there's been talk about him possibly doing directing a Star Trek film. Now,
Oh,
I don't know.
I was gonna get on that after we did the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which is the next film.
Right, but
But
before this was developed,
we kind of went over that. I mean, personally, I think we talked about everything in that. So if you want to go and watch that, we'll go ahead and just leave it at that. Because we did just recently just watched Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I'd hate to have to talk about that again, but like you said, there's rumors. Oh, after Hateful Eight, let's bring this up. There was rumors that was the final Quentin Tarantino film.
I don't know if it was the
Where
final, but because for a long time,
apparently that was his first announcement of retirement, and I'm quoting my fingers right now, because obviously we saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and apparently he's quoted that again, and like Justin's just mentioned, that there's rumors going around. There's a bunch of rumors. We got Star Trek. that apparently he's going to do, which is going to be a hard R Star Trek version. Then there's do Django, Zorro work together and make a series out of that? There's two. Now, I don't know if you heard this, but I found this out today. There's a rumor going around where Quentin Tarantino is officially, while he has made something that was somewhat of a similar element, but you can also argue it was an action film, that Quentin Tarantino is actually talking about making a straight up horror film.
I haven't heard that yet, but
Yeah,
I
that was released today. That was released today. And I'm glad that we started this final review today because this was released that he's wanting to make something on par with Exorcist.
that I'm actually haven't heard about.
Yeah, that's been brought up quite a bit today. And he's actually intrigued about maybe not doing the Star Trek probably, and maybe not doing the Zorro thing and the Django right now, and focusing on possibly doing a straight up gruesome horror film, like straight horror, not action, horror. Which I wonder what that would do with him being a dialogue heavy director in a horror film.
I mean, the year, but well, not to backtrack, but the year before Hateful Eight came out, he did announce in 2014. I did hear that he did officially say that once he directed his 10th film, he would retire after that. So far, he's only made his 9th. So,
Well, I actually heard it was Hateful Eight, then it was the 9th film was his final one, and then now he's got 3 films that he wants to work on. He wants to do Star Trek Hard R, he wants to do a Django meets Zorro, and then he wants to do a straight up fucking horror film. Like we're talking about It, Exorcist level, Nightmare on Elm Street level.
that I
Like,
would actually love to see, actually.
yeah, he said he's because he doesn't really count Death Proof as horror. He counts that as more like a thriller, maybe a little bit horror, but action at the same time because the fact that the second half just takes it quirky. But he said that he wants to focus on a pure 110% horror.
That would be interesting.
He said he will not call it quits in his film career until he does that. So we are getting Quentin Tarantino. It's the fact that this dude is threatened to retire twice or 3 times, and he still isn't. So I'm just not gonna believe him until he actually doesn't do it. So
Yeah.
but like really, I mean, there's no need for the guy to retire. He just not announce anything and just keep on going. So
Right, but to get into, but I did want it, but to get into the next film that we have, just real quick, we'll discuss a little bit of things that we didn't cover in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood that I wanted to go into more detail with that we really
do it. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, if you want to, we can go ahead and cover that.
Yeah, because there was stuff in that review that we did that I feel like we wanted to cover more that we wanted to mainly elaborate on. Mainly it involves with the plot involving with the Manson family. So with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, keep in mind this was a film that I was already looking forward to begin with because in 2017 it was announced that Tarantino wanted to do a take on the Manson family murders about Sharon Tate and stuff. So already from the news that broke out, I was actually kind of curious. I was like, okay, that's going to be kind of out of the ordinary because I kind of figured going into it, I was like, how are you going to take a tragedy like that and turn it into a Tarantino film? And
exactly. At first, I was going to be like, when I first heard about it, I was like, so Tarantino's going to actually do a truthful story, which threw me off. Yeah.
Yeah, and then pretty much when I was starting to hear more news broke out where it was going to involve like more with DiCaprio and Brad Pitt and all that, it really got me curious. I was like, oh wow, they're doing more than just the Sharon Tate murders. They're doing more of other stuff in Hollywood. And then there were also other announcements they had where they were originally going to have if you remember, it was going to have Burt Reynolds play in his last role before he passed away. And believe it or not, I read in a just recent interview, Tarantino actually got him in rehearsals to do as a test to play the role that he was going to play before he passed away. So technically speaking, Burt Reynolds has played his final role. He just didn't get to actually film the scenes.
Yeah, so they decided to leave it out, and they didn't go with him. So,
Yeah,
which is a shame because really, theoretically, after seeing the scene he was going to play in, I don't see how they just could not just went with him in that.
I know. It's just that they didn't get around to filming until after he passed away, though.
Yeah, it's a shame that they didn't do it because really, if you think about it, it's a very quick scene.
It is, but I mean, it sucks because there was, you know,
Yeah.
they would have had more going on if, while he was still alive, probably. But, but what, yeah, so already from the trailers and everything, I was already excited for this movie to begin with because just the novelty of seeing old Hollywood back like in the old times and stuff, especially in the late 60s, it really got me fucking curious. And I really wanted to see what they were going to do with blending that with the whole Charles Manson shit. And like we said, we already did a review of the film, but I will say right now, like this is one of the reasons why I love Tarantino's movies. Like, no matter what movie he does, it seems like he just can't make a bad movie, in my opinion. Death Proof comes close,
You can
but
call us fanboys all you want, but really, it ain't fanboys. You got to give the guy fucking credit. It's something the guy brings originality, and that's what people who will call you fanboys will fucking bitch about. Well, there ain't nothing original in Hollywood. Well, fucking Quentin Tarantino comes as the goddamn king at fucking originality.
I mean, he's
Aside from
technically
some other
stealing
directors,
stuff.
but
I mean, he's technically stealing ideas, yes,
he's
but
stealing
he does.
ideas, but he's taking ideas and he's just throwing it out there where you can't predict it. I
Yeah,
mean, at least it's something.
yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
it's better than the regurgitated fucking The Boy Next Door, The Crazy Girlfriend Next Door, the fucking ghost paranoia film we see every year, the fucking slasher guy that wears a mask, the breaking in the fucking house,
Yeah,
the
exactly.
fucking love story, the fucking, I mean, it's the same shit we see. You can fucking 99% of the fucking movies are the same format, same
Exactly.
format. And Hollywood today is beyond why we do have good movies we like to watch, and every now and then we get surprised with movies like Upgrade and shit like that. That's what I love about when films like Upgrade and Brightburn. Like that's another guy I'm starting to gain more praise on is fucking I said Brightburn. What's his face? From
Oh,
Guardians.
James Gunn.
James Gunn. He's becoming like a Tarantino kind of type of guy myself too, because he's literally taking shit like Superman and turning him into a horror film. I love directors who take risks, and to me, I feel like, James Gunn. You got fucking Quentin Tarantino. You got a few others like that that I feel like don't give a fuck and let's just make something just balls to the wall.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
while probably not in our top 10, we saw a movie last year called Overlord. I love films like that. I love films that just go and just say, we're going to make fucking something fun.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. And
but Quentin Tarantino is the only one I can actually think of that actually is consistent. And you got to give the guy credit if you think I'm a fanboy. Fuck it, I'm fucking calling you a fanboy. But the guy makes great films.
he
I mean,
does.
yeah, he has made some that were while not bad, but a little underwhelming compared to Pulp Fiction and some of the other films. But
Yeah, and what I appreciated with this movie a lot too was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was not only was it great seeing old school Hollywood filmmaking the way it was done back in those days with, how TV shows were made and stuff, but all the references they had to like old school TV shows like Wanted Dead or Alive and stuff. And, just that classic era where you got to see a lot of, things come to life. And it felt really authentic as well.
yeah, it is very authentic. Probably the most authentic film he's ever done. And it
Yeah,
takes a lot of talented writing to make a movie about a bunch of actors who are failing at acting, and you watch them film a movie within the movie.
yeah, and once again, like I said, with
It
the
was actually pretty
performances,
fucking neat. It's like I paid one ticket and I watched like 6 movies.
Yeah, and with the performances as well, like they're fucking phenomenal. Like DiCaprio is already great, but Brad Pitt, it's almost like he's stealing certain scenes that I just couldn't get enough of. I was like, damn, what the fuck else is he gonna do in this with the playing
And
as the stuntman?
personally, yeah, I know we're probably going to get criticized for this. A lot of people did not like this movie, and everybody's got their own opinions. That's what makes films awesome. You
Mm,
loved it, you love it. You hate it, yeah, you hated it. All right, cool. I ain't gonna judge you. Don't judge me. Don't judge us for liking it. I noticed that me and Justin and maybe a few others only like this film, but unfortunately, this film is overly hated, and I kind of question why.
yeah,
Especially when people are saying it's a top 10 worst. That, to me, I kind of disagree heavily. You can maybe say, yeah, wasn't my cup of tea. I agree. I did catch some things that wasn't really, I wouldn't put this film up there. Let's just say that.
yeah.
However, top 10 worst, come on now. Have you seen replicas in some of these films me and him's watched this year? Yeah, yeah. Let's just say that you need to watch more films because there's no way this movie is worse than, well, you like this film. There's no way you can convince me this film is worse than Happy Death Day to You.
Yeah. I mean, this movie was everything that Hollywood was known for also in the 60s as well in that era. Because you got to think back in the day when when they were making stuff like this around that time, we were at the end of an era where stuff was becoming new with television becoming changed over time, and you had the new Hollywood system that came in that changed a lot of boundaries as far as what you could do with like certain like material like when you had actors that went from regular TV and they couldn't make it in Hollywood, and then they end up having to do regular Western, like Italian Western films overseas. That was very common back in those days, and I like the just the way that Tarantino presented that self. And also, what I appreciated the most with this was the fact that even though this now we get into spoilers for this, it takes the angle with the Sharon Tate story, but it does it in a way that honestly I actually didn't mind. I'll admit that it changes history out of it, but given for what it is, I appreciated what Tarantino did with this story.
Okay, now that we're on that subject, I'm going to say something. Wow. All right. We can all agree that it was a pleasant to see Quentin Tarantino change history on Hitler and Glorious Bastards. Because the dude was a fucking royal piece of fucking dog shit. And it was a fucking honor watching a Nazi get his fucking asses blown the fucking way by us.
Mm.
It didn't really happen. I agree with that. And a lot of people said, you know what? I give that a pass. Because fuck that mother. Fuck Hitler. Yeah, fuck Hitler. However, I could see why a lot of people are like, okay, Quentin Tarantino went a little too far on this one with Sharon Tate, mocking her tragedy. I
Yeah.
agree. But at the same time, it's Quentin Tarantino. He's giving us something different. It would be kind of cool to see Sharon Tate if something changed. I don't see that he was trying to do it as a like fuck Sharon Tate. He wasn't doing that. I think a lot of
No.
people were taking that the wrong way, and that's why a lot of people hated this movie. And two, I like to address this because this is the biggest fucking issue here. A lot of people were offended about the Bruce Lee scene,
Yeah.
mainly his daughter.
Mm.
It's a alternate universe film, and I wrote that on her blog. It's an alternate universe film. I respect her dad. Bruce Lee is a beautiful man. The guy was a philosopher. Like the guy spoke beautiful. Great fighter. There ain't nothing that Bruce Lee did in his life that was bad.
Yeah.
I respect her father to the fullest extent. However, this is an alternate universe. It wasn't a Bruce Lee biopic. And three, he didn't mean nothing harm about that. The guy, Quentin Tarantino, for one, respects martial arts, hinting Kill Bill 1 and 2, paid respects to Bruce Lee, hinting, not really bringing it up, but he respect the Asian culture. He's not trying to trash it. So I think a lot of people are overly hating the movie.
Yeah, exactly. And what I appreciated too was the fact that in the Sharon Tate storyline, when we see her, because basically throughout the film, she's interspliced with this. Her storyline is parallel with Rick Dalton and Cliff's storyline because basically what she is, and I think this was intentional that Tarantino wanted to go with that he wanted to set it up to where she was pretty much basically like in a metaphorical sense, she's pretty much what Rick Dalton is trying to seek in a way, basically trying to find that, basically that pursuit of happiness of being a well-established actor that's supposed to find themselves in a very freeform state where they're living their life in a happy mood and stuff, and that's what she comes in. And the way that she comes in, she's already an established actress where she's not as big as Rick, but as far as TV wise, but she still has made herself famous in Hollywood, and she's happy where she is.
Yeah, exactly.
And basically, the approach that they were going for, I kind of thought that maybe they were going to take it to where, like in real life, if tragically, spoilers, she ended up getting killed in real life by the Manson family.
Yeah, now, I don't think that's a spoiler. I think that's well known as much as Kennedys.
Well, the spoiler with this was that they changed gears on us in the ending of the movie, where it turns out that it all leads to the Manson family clan pretty much going after Rick Dalton instead of Sharon Tate, because Rick Dalton intervenes, basically changing history in a literal sense, so to speak.
Yeah, because his friend, his partner in crime or partner in movies ended up, giving in on the one of his little angels and went to the place and basically, kind of like changed history right there. And you know what? I mean, kind of see it like this. If people could praise that we changed history and said, you know what, we're going to slaughter Hitler. Let's have fun. Let's fuck that cocksucker up. Then why can we not just fucking get in fun and say, fuck the goddamn Charles Manson and his little clan. Let's fuck them up. It's the same people, right?
Well, I felt like
people killed out of hate. If we can praise Hitler, why can we not say, let's celebrate us killing the fucking Charles Manson people?
Exactly. And I felt like, in a respectful way, I felt like that was, to me, more justified with that, instead of them actually doing the approach of them actually intending to kill her off. Because I felt like them going with that approach, where they're going after Rick Dalton and Cliff, was, and basically having them.
People will say this. People say, like, all right, well, Sharon Tate, you're disrespecting the history. I think her family would be more offended to watch how her fucking that family member died more than this.
Yeah.
I think in a way it's like Sharon Tate in a way is like a spirit, and he call me over analyzing this or not, but it's like we respect her, what she did, and she lives with us to forever type thing. What she could have done. It was like paying respects more than anything, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. And I enjoyed that. But also, what I appreciated too was that this ending that they bring up, I honestly thought was one of the biggest highlights of the entire movie. Like, it basically works in a metaphorical sense, because it basically shows how these characters that we root for throughout the entire film find their redemption, especially Rick, since he finally finds his fame with the spaghetti westerns and stuff. He ends up getting himself in a place of happiness. And if they were going to go with the approach where they pretty much killed him off, I felt like it would have ruined the character arc they were going for with them.
Well, yeah, because what you're doing is, if you did it that way, you're Sharon Tate died in real life from them, so you're just trading her death for somebody else. I
Yeah,
mean, like, I see what Tarantino was trying to do. He goes, no, because if you do that, that's more of a fuck you to Sharon Tate than letting her live. You
yeah,
know, it's giving her respect if she lived, like she lives with us forever. We respect her. Let's
yeah,
just watch the people who did, since unfortunately the events, she died horribly. Let's just watch if it would have been the next fold. Let the family get able to get enjoyment of watching the Manson family and the Angels getting fucking killed.
yeah, exactly. And then also, what I appreciate the scene. Yeah, this is pretty much the only scene of the film, other than that really brutal ass fight scene with Bruce, where Brad Pitt beats the shit out of one dude. This is the scene where you pretty much get your typical Tarantino fashion, where when the actual Manson family break in, we get that really funny scene at first where Brad Pitt is like, all high from that fucking thing that he smokes from that
Oh my
hitchhiker.
god, dude, that was hilarious.
It
He was like,
was. I was like, dude, I was fucking bull. I was laughing with you in that theater. And I was like, damn. And pretty much, yeah, it all boils down where he ends up getting the dog sicking on him, and he ends up beating the shit out of them and throwing, and then
dude, he's fucking straight up just, they go into great detail, like crushing skulls and ripping that fucking girl's jaw open. I was like, God damn, this movie
yeah,
did a 180 on gore. Because, literally, this is one film that literally does 90% dialogue, which a lot of people have kind of complained that for most of his dialogue films he's ever done, which that's pretty much any film he's ever done, people will complain that the dialogue killed the movie because it was too dialogue.
yeah.
I love the dialogue in this film. I'm gonna heavily disagree with people. I was glued to this movie.
I was too, man. I was fucking like so involved with not only with the stuff with the making of areas, especially with Dalton where he's on the television show that he's on and stuff, but also just other areas too where we had those conversations with Pitt and the hitchhiker girl where she's introducing him to like the Manson family and stuff, and I was like, it's just so fascinating.
Yeah.
And this payoff that they do here with this fucking brutal scene at the end of the film was just it actually resolved itself with the movie in a very metaphorical way, but also a very respectful way too that I enjoyed. And
Yeah,
also like
yeah, it's respectful, but I can actually, if I had to agree with the fan base that did criticize this movie, I will give you one credit: the abrupt ending that just
I
came
will
out of
say
nowhere.
that yes, it does end it pretty much where because after everyone gets involved, I wanted to talk about this real quick.
Yeah,
Throughout the film, we forgot to mention earlier. If you remember the scene in the trailer, it shows that part where DiCaprio's got like that flamethrower in that movie within the movie that he's in, where he's pretty much burning Nazis and stuff. He actually used it. He actually keeps that same fucking flamethrower at his house and uses it to kill that one dude in his pool, which I
yeah, it
thought
was
was
that.
pretty fun.
Yeah, I believe it was a girl.
Yeah, that's right. It was the girl, and pretty much, yeah, and that was cool. And then basically, it all ends where after Brad Pitt and his character ends up going to the hospital, he ends up getting invited to finally meet Sharon Tate in person, and this is
Yeah,
where the whole history change comes into play. Where right here, when he gets introduced to her, the movie just ends. It after that, it's
yeah.
like it just
At the
abruptly
same
ends.
time, I get what they were going for, where Sharon Tate the whole entire movie, it's represent that her career is taking off in a good way
Mhm.
and doesn't go down. It gets better and better for her. While Dalton and his stunt double are kind of going in a downward spiral where they're pretty much their career's over with. And he notices that nobody recognizes him anymore. No one cares for him anymore. No matter what he does, it's like, oh, you're old news. And basically, it's like, oh, Sharon Tate, and you recognize me? Oh, thank you.
I know.
Okay. It's
Just
like
imagine.
it's kind of like a metaphor, like it's like a not a metaphor. It's kind of like you respect me, okay? Maybe this is a good thing. It's like good news, after a bad night with Charlie. Now, the other agreement I will have with a problem I did have with this film was the underuse of probably the most identical looking Charles Manson we will probably ever get. And this motherfucker's in it for 2 seconds. The
Yeah,
smile. The fucking smile. They could have used a lot more scenes with
I
this
know.
guy.
He literally has a conversation when he shows up earlier in the film to at the Tate's residence, and really that's it. That's the only time we ever see him. And the rest of the
Yeah,
film
and his
is based on his
purpose of being at the
presence.
Tates is really kind of not that good compared to why he really knew the Tates. So
Well, I think it was, well, from what I remember, I read the story. It had to do with him pretty much trying to get find some. He was trying to get a role for, or he was trying to get into Hollywood from someone that he knew that lived there, and
yeah,
basically because that person didn't live there anymore, he basically it had something to do with him pretty much getting shit shit listed from this person that lived at that house. And
I'm gonna well because Tarantino didn't really dig into that and didn't really describe that very well. I do gotta kind of gripe at that a little bit
well, yeah, because it wasn't
because
really focused on
he isn't very clear cut on that. That is just somebody that I mean, you and I could just make up something and just say it was because of that. I mean, that doesn't really describe the actual events of what Tarantino might have thought.
right.
You
I know
know,
that's just
yeah.
the
So
things that
that's
happen in
a
real
problem
life,
too.
basically. Because
Yeah.
in the real life, there was the guy that there was a record producer named Terry Melcher that used to live at that residence, and he was a person that Charles Manson knew that he was trying to get a record deal out of for his music. And because he didn't get the record deal, he felt like because he thought he still lived there, he basically sent his clan there in real life to kill everyone there. Now that's not even established in the movie, but I'm just saying that's what happened in real life.
Yeah. But like we said earlier, we there ain't much we can really go in detail on this one. But because we went, we just did a review on that, but we both gave it a very, very, very low phenomenal grade on Film Freaks meter.
No, I
Uh,
well, actually we gave it a phenomenal grade.
I gave it a low phenomenal grade. I was different
But
from you.
oh, okay, I thought we both gave it a phenomenal grade because I looked at
No,
our.
I might have gave it a low. I'll have to look again. But I think I was under you a little bit on that one. But yeah, it was still a good movie. It's gonna be my top 10. I mean, you call us fanboys all you want, but Quentin is awesome. So
Yeah, it's going to be a phenomenal grade on the film. It's still a phenomenal grade on the Film Freaks meter for me, man. Like it's definitely up there. I don't know where it's going to rank, but it's going to be on
now, if I
the
went
list.
to all my Quentin Tarantino films, like directorial, it wouldn't probably be. It definitely isn't up there on my list. But yeah,
Yeah, I got you. But overall, though, like I'm always on board. I enjoy so much with Tarantino of his movies and stuff that like I respect him as a filmmaker and I respect him as a writer, and I'm always open to whatever he does and whatever he brings in the future, whether it's writing, directing, or whatever. I'm down for whatever the case is. And like we were saying earlier, I'm open if he is to still do a Star Trek movie just directing wise, because it would be something very different for him.
yeah.
But I think that if he goes for that horror movie approach, I think that if that would be the last movie he does, it would probably be on
Yeah,
the.
the Star Trek thing, I really because people have done it recently. You got the too many spin-offs. You got the Discovery. You got the movies that just recently ended. Then you got the spoof with the Family guy, and you got another show that's doing their own version of Discovery with their own version. I just think that that's not his best suit. Really, I don't think he should do that. Um, I would love to see Quentin Tarantino in a horror film. I would love to see that. I'd like
Yeah,
to see his
too.
take. That's a guy who likes to do every genre, and he has, but horror. Because really, technically, Death Proof is rated under. While it does have horror elements, but it's more like a thriller / action. It's more action. It's really heavily action. So he technically hasn't done a pure horror, and I'd love to see that.
Exactly. And
Yep.
so overall, I enjoy pretty much 90% of his films. I really enjoyed a lot of, and I can't get enough of the guy. And I'm just always looking forward to his movies in the future. And with that, we thank you so much for listening to our discussion of Quentin Tarantino. And for those of you who have also watched all of Tarantino's films, let us know in the comments below what you thought about them. And if you like what you see here, you can feel free to like and subscribe to our channel and check us our other reviews here and our website at filmphreeks.com. And we'll be seeing you in our next review. We'll see you later.
Later.